My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence, that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity, theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. It is Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. It's 12:56 in the morning. And at 12:56 in the morning, the U.S. government is not conducting an investigation pertaining to providing justice for an American citizen, myself, who has already substantiated what is evidence for the unprecedented crime of criminal surveillance that the U.S. government itself is forced to acknowledge, because I am the one that's documented and proved and have single-handedly proven that the government is engaging in criminal surveillance and is criminally targeting me upon doing so. This is where, again, at 12:56 a.m., the same demonic government, which again, Jason Isaac Fields, is in a position abusing a government position, engaging in sexual violence, engaging in psychological torture, engaging what is satanic means of harassment, because this sex offender and this rapist who doesn't take no as an answer, who believes that you don't mean no when you say no, who persists against your will when you say no. This demon, Tracy Banks' sex partner, Tracy Banks' co-conspirator, Tracy Banks' satanic kingdom spouse, with whom he is monitoring me in the spirit, this demon that's not engaged in any investigation pursuant to his own criminal activity, who is monitoring and engaging in what is hereby documented psychological torture, which is going to support what is law to bar this psychopath from ever coming into contact with me. or he will be prosecuted. That demon is the one that's engaging in what is interference with sleep. He is engaged in monitoring. This demon is engaged in harassment. This demon is as delusional as his sex partner, Tracy Banks, who says things like, I'm not a lawyer. But again, her name is not on the California bar site, so you can ask her what the explanation behind that is. When she is gang stalking, when the state is gang stalking, and mere non-payment of fees does not amount to what is my not being somebody that has taken the California bar exam. This is, again, somebody that is delusional. While she's engaged in what is sex rituals with her sex partner, Jason Isaac Fields, these are the things that they are speaking into the universe with regard to their delusional purposes of targeting me, telling themselves that I'm not this and I'm not that, and I am that they are, by the way, the target individuals. They are the creator of the intellectual property, which is evidence prosecuting them both and prosecuting the government. But again, this is just getting to the delusions of the sex offenders who are obsessed with me, and their obsession is based on the shared condition of being demon possessed. Jason Isaac Fields is indeed a demon possessed person who was not a legitimate investigator in the government that is permitting him to psychologically torture me and stalk me, and then call it an investigation as the same government that I'm going to prosecute for federal group stalking and monitoring. This person is, again, engaging in what is spiritually attacking, and that's why I am being repeatedly interrupted in sleep while this demon is wide awake, obsessing over me and spiritually attacking, which is, again, common sense with regard to someone that I will never have any relationship with other than prosecuting this criminal and this demon-possessed person who is scary, not attractive, who is Tracy Banks's sex partner, not attractive. It is never going to happen. This person is as delusional as his sex partner, Tracy Banks, and he's as demonic as his sex partner, Tracy Banks. And this is another day of me documenting a criminal that's never going to come in contact with me, who is not responsible for my intellectual property where he is being documented. He is not sharing in ownership of my intellectual property. He is not sharing in any creations that he has stolen by monitoring me. This psychopath is engaged in what is spiritually attacking and is, again, a demon that is the threat of a rapist who refuses to take no as the answer. But again, a delusional psychopath that is stalking you is not in full control of all their mental faculties, and the reality is not the one that they create, the illusions that they are surrounded by, that they surround themselves by, and that they are living their lives by. Meaning, a delusional psychopath is stalking and is telling themselves that they're not going to federal prison. A delusional psychopath is a demon and is telling themselves that they're on the side of Christ while they're spiritually attacking me. A delusional psychopath is engaging in what is obsessing over me and is telling themselves that I will voluntarily choose to be in a relationship with them after I have clearly stated, and everyone else is witnessing me communicate the fact that Jason Isaac Fields is nothing other than a perverted stalker, a psychopath that is communicating an unlawful threat, which I'm going to prosecute with. And it's also going to be the basis to tie him up with federal law were he to ever come into my presence and engage in what is terrorizing me in my face. That's it. He's nothing but a demon-possessed stalker. This person that's engaging and acting with the government, I'm going to prosecute the government for cooperating with the criminal and satanic methods of what is gang stalking with Tracy Banks and the rest of the people of the state, the city of Ontario. He is gang stalking me while the fake sun remains over me. He is psychologically torturing while I'm being targeted with engineered light, while he's engaging in surveillance with the government. And interrupting with sleep, spiritually attacking, monitoring at nightfall has absolutely nothing to do with an investigation. He is a part of no act of heroism. It is my intellectual property that is exposing the government. It is my intellectual property that the government is simultaneously suppressing online. It is my intellectual property that demons like Jason Isaac Fields has stolen. He's going to be forced to admit to that. He's going to be prosecuted for that. He's going to hand over everything that he has stolen by engaging in that. And he's also going to be barred from ever coming into contact with me. And that's what a demon gets after having anal sex with my mother, a witch, praying to demons while targeting me, defaming my character, and then engaging what is still abusing a government position while spiritually attacking, being a demon and gang stalking. This is the system, the comprehensive system of gang stalking. The spiritual attacks is part of that. This delusional psychopath tells himself that he's different from his sex partner, Tracy Banks, and he's not. He was having sex with Tracy Banks because he's a demon. He was targeting me because he's a demon. He's obsessed with me because he's a demon. Okay, he's engaging in what is harassing me at nightfall, interrupting my sleep as a demon because he's a demon. It is currently 1:03 a.m. rather, on May 22nd, 2025, and his sex partner, Tracy Banks, is providing ongoing evidence as to why he will never be permitted in my presence, as to why he is going to be prosecuted with regard to a criminal means of infringement with regard to my intellectual property that Jason Isaac Fields and the government shares no ownership in. They didn't help me document. They are the reason why I'm documenting while they threaten my life and safety and well-being. They are enabling the government to terrorize me by gang stalking me in helicopters with the whole civilian population in a terrorizing environment. They are part of that crime. They are the substance of the evidence. They share no ownership in it. And that remains the case. That's the fact. Now, this demon is as delusional as his sex partner, who would like to tell herself that I was never an attorney and that because she's been gang stalking and I am not able to pay legal fees, which I don't need to prosecute this psychopath and this sex offender, or her sex offending, gang stalking, never to be baby daddy who can impregnate a 60-year-old woman. These two predators are spiritually attacking together. They are equally delusional and they will be equally prosecuted as well. It is currently Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. The ongoing psychological torture that I'm documenting is the basis of the prosecution for the government, the U.S. government that's engaged in targeting. And the inability to stop Jason Isaac Fields, who is a predator, who's engaging in terrorism and psychological torture while holding a position with the government. I'm going to prosecute the government, and Jason Isaac Fields is also going to be prosecuted. It is currently, again, 1:04 a.m. This is P.O.C. It's currently 4:20 a.m. and this is documentation pursuant to federal stalking that I remain subject to. Federal stalking is acknowledgement of the surveillance via communication devices, and this is something that, again, sex offenders and voyeurists engage in, particularly at night where I'm subject to monitoring, and the demon possessed are stalking and monitoring me and engaging and then also obsessively watching me while I'm in this sleep state. It's very sick and demented. It's the material to keep stalkers and sex offenders, rapists like Jason Isaac Fields, from ever coming into contact with me. Jason Isaac Fields is mentally ill and beyond creepy. This demon stalks and monitors me along with his long-term sex partner and co-conspirator, that's Tracy Banks, in targeting and furtherance of murder and kidnapping via criminal defamation. Tracy Banks, who is also my mother, whom he has had years of a sexually intimate relationship, which is disgusting. The demon is monitoring and engaged, the demon Jason Isaac Fields is monitoring and engaged in federal stalking, which he uses, and this is the government while Jason Isaac Fields does that, which he uses to psychologically torture and harass as I wake up in the middle of the night and my cell phone where I'm listening to content, and I'm not touching my phone, and I wake up and the phone is not playing the content anymore, and the demons are sitting around monitoring, watching that. That's creepy, very creepy and sick behavior that no person that's ever going to be in a relationship with me. I'm not going to be friends with any stalker. I'm not going to be friends with any gang stalker. I'm not going to be friends with any demon-possessed person. I'm not going to be friends with any sex partner of Tracy Banks. I'm not going to be friends with anyone that cannot accept and respect the word no. That's what Jason Isaac Fields' problem is, and amongst the fact that he is also mentally ill. This demon is monitoring and engaged in federal stalking, which he uses to psychologically torture and harass while criminally targeting and remaining in denial about never being acceptable nor permitted near me, as he is indeed sick and demented, demonic and obsessed with perverted ideas about sexual activity the rapist, Jason Isaac Fields, would enjoy forcing me into doing. This is the same demon that is in the middle of the night, engaging in what is the use of witchcraft, sex magic and whatnot, which he uses when he engages in sexual activity with men, and when he engages in sexual activity with, I guess, grandma age women like Tracy Banks. This is the thing that he has been engaged in using, and he tried to use that on me. This is something where you're engaged in what is masturbating while I'm sleeping, engaged in calling on satanic spirits, and then trying to use that sort of witchcraft on me, which doesn't work. And then it in turn results in my embarrassing him for being a demon-possessed stalker who was monitoring me, and by the way, is not engaging in any investigation, nor is anybody engaging in such documented acts going to have any part in what is my acknowledging the government being a part in providing justice, which Jason Isaac Fields is not a part of. Jason Isaac Fields is the problem, and he's going to be dealt with accordingly with regard to what is also law that will bar him from ever coming into contact with me. His mental illness is very obvious, and it is glaring while he is engaged in monitoring me and federal stalking. This is somebody that cannot control himself. This is somebody who's inability to control himself is very much a threat to my life. Somebody that will cause physical harm if you reject them. Somebody that will engage in what is rape if you reject them. Somebody that is in denial about how unattractive and how unacceptable they are, who will then engage in what is, again, the lack of self-control causing physical harm. This is what is supporting law to keep him out of my presence. The creepy and demonic behavior of monitoring on my devices, turning it off so then I am disconcerted when I wake up and these demons are sitting around watching that and masturbating to it. This is what the sex offender is engaging in. This is what his sex partner, the grandma Tracy Banks, that he's been engaged in his long-term sexual relationship and practicing witchcraft together, has trained him to do. And this is what he's doing now, as somebody that's being nothing other than documented and exposed as a demon, which is speaking to what is a psychopath that lacks any normal ability to function. And he is also engaging in what is criminal conduct while I'm documenting gang stalking. Fields' sickness is a threat to my life and safety, as well as his targeting with the state is. And this is demonstrating a willingness to take my life and physically harm me, which I reasonably fear and intend to protect myself from by restraining Jason Isaac Fields, who is a thief and who is a liar, a stalker, a delusional psychopath that is demon possessed currently and disgustingly aggressive. He is a sex offender who is monitoring my genitalia with all other sex offenders, and the pervert masturbates while he's stalking me. This dangerous individual is a stalker and sex partner of my mother, Tracy Banks, which is beyond gross and scary. And his ongoing monitoring shall be the material prosecuting the government and himself while being restrained, which is absolutely necessary in the case of Jason Isaac Fields. Restrained from contact with me, and his obsession is demonic and evidence of his mental illness. It's 4:26 in the morning where the entity is tampering with my device, my cell phone in particular, where I'm listening to content, and the demons derive pleasure from engaging in what is tampering with my device. And as I wake up, and they sit around watching me engage in that. This is pursuant to the obsession with me. Remember, the demon possessed are obsessed with me while they're gang stalking and targeting and engaging in psychological torture. And then they're sitting around engaging in voyeurism, fascinated, while their tactics that work on the ordinary target individual do not work on me. And they are also still sick and sitting around masturbating like Jason Isaac Fields, a sex offender, while I am even exposing him and speaking to the ways in which law is going to bar him from coming into contact with me. This person is very, very sick. His sexual relationship with Tracy Banks is also evidence of that. This person, I'm going to put it very explicitly, this person that has been engaged in what is being entering his penis inside of my mother is never going to have any relationship with me. His denial with regard to what he did to somebody who walks with Christ and who God is using in the capacity that he is using is his own denial with regard to what he is. He's a demon, and he's in denial with regard to the fact that he is a demon. He is a demon that engaged in what is trying to kill me and also steal the words that I've stated with regard to exposing the demon possessed, which is literally God's word. He is in denial about that, and he's in denial because he's a demon. He's in denial, and he's still targeting in a spiritual matter because he's a demon. And this demon is a predator, a violent sex offender who will commit murder and rape if he is not barred by law. It is currently 4:27 a.m. This is the evidence, which is documentation, which is going to bar Jason Isaac Fields from ever coming in contact with me. And it is necessarily published because the public, as well as the government that I am documenting in order to prosecute, is a part of the pattern of conduct. It is 4:27 a.m. This is P.O.C. All right, it is currently 10:29 a.m. right now. You will see the specific environment remaining inside of the same apartment where I'm capturing the fake sun at 6:33 in the morning on May 21st, 2025. So that is the evidence of the engineered light inside of the apartment is the evidence of stalking with light, which occurs under the fake sun. The engineered light is not sunlight, and it is absolutely impossible to be the product of sunlight. It's appearing inside of the apartment, windows covered up, door closed. And the light is luminescing even while the living room light is on. So I turn it off so you can see it even more brightly, framing the front door. Very sharp edged light that just appears on the ceiling, very particular around the front door while pacing is ongoing inside of the apartment. And this is relevant to what the defendant is doing under the fake sun that's rising and setting. Remember the 6:13 p.m. sun that I documented, while again my shadow was manifesting inside of the same apartment in the shade, out of no light whatsoever, shade, dark living room, light manifesting, showing my shadow. So I'm being molested with impossible light activity. That's pursuant to surveillance. So surveillance is underway on the venue of the internet, and that's what's underway while I'm capturing this specific environment. We're pacing, and that's the malicious guise for gang stalking in your home, where you will be subject to prison. And this particular defendant, which is subject to a mental asylum, and the ongoing very neurotic behavior that is documented while the documentation is being captured, which is also analyzed as a threat to the targeted individual. And that's the state that's acting through the entity, by the way, that engage in that neurotic behavior, that engage in those criminal acts of seeking to threaten and intimidate while you're engaging in egregious criminal conduct on behalf of a corrupt government. This is again the sex partner of, this is the reference to the co-conspirator, the demon that engages in targeting with the criminal purpose of infringement, of theft of intellectual property, of profiting from it, of criminally defaming my character in order to accomplish kidnapping. This is Jason Isaac Fields, who is still monitoring in real time with the demon that's inside of the apartment, and the demons inside of the apartment building, and the demons that are monitoring in the city of Ontario, where I remain in the specific environment. This is what the U.S. government is engaging in. Again, this is what Jason Isaac Fields is engaging in. In doing so, I want to be clear, the neurotic behavior is relevant to the specific environment and the pattern of conduct and the demon possessed, but the neurotic behavior is also exhibited in the unabashed, the unapologetic means whereby the entity is monitoring. So engaging in what is gang stalking as a means of infringement is totally intolerable, and the government's engaging in this, the people of the state are engaging in this, and it's not going to be protected under copyright law. So while I am on the internet, this is what inspires pacing and engineer light, not some sort of what anyone would say, oh, I'm hungry and that's why I'm going into the kitchen, getting the refrigerator, the microwave, the cabinets, etc. The engineer light is present because you're monitoring, and you're monitoring pursuant to surveillance. This is surveillance underway in an apartment building amongst the people of the state. That's why a fake sun is over the apartment. That's why impossible light activities inside of the apartment. And it's only a delusional psychopath that would carry on in the face of that supernatural evidence, which is nonetheless evidence. But this is, again, the neurotic behavior and the deluded mindset of those that are gang stalking, of the demon possessed. This is shared by, again, the criminal Jason Isaac Fields, who is subject to and is someone who belongs in federal prison for seeking to engage in murder and kidnapping for purposes of copyright infringement, but to avoid that title by murder and kidnapping. Every idea, and I want to be clear, in use by the government, the military, any level of government, stealing ideas that belong to me, stealing content, intellectual property that belongs to me, which also happens to be evidence. That's what's relevant regarding the particularly egregious manner of copyright infringement that Jason Isaac Fields and his sex partner, who's pacing in the kitchen inside of this apartment, are engaging in together, while the entities engage in what is criminal conduct. So not successfully accomplishing defaming my character, not successfully accomplishing murder and kidnapping, is not going to result in what is copyright infringement, which is no less copyright infringement or theft of things such as my evidence regarding the P.O.C, any use of my logos, trademark infringement, any theft of what are no single idea is the product of any of these sex offenders, any of these demons that have been targeting me. So the entity is engaging in what is a domestic terrorism and psychological torture in order to profit. And this is relevant to the collateral harms that I've spoke on and that I expounded upon with regard to documenting and getting to when you're prosecuting the corrupt and defiled motivations for gang stalking, which can include things such as merely profiting. And you've heard of this, people putting insurance policies on their spouses or their children and then murdering them, or they come up missing. And the entity that it's targeting, by the way, when you're ignorant about federal group stalking and monitoring, is a part of that pattern of conduct. And there will never be a truthful explanation about what happened to that targeted individual that happened to have an insurance policy on their head, and which was incentivizing targeting in the first place. It is the entity committing murder. It is the entity engaging in what is kidnapping, where you are subject to the P.O.C. Via the courts, who are engaging in that pattern of conduct. So this is relevant to what I'm looking at online. That's why I'm going into the copyright and trademark language, because I am on the internet. That's why I'm taking a picture of, because it's relevant to what is the demon monitoring while she's pacing in the kitchen and engineer lights fill in the apartment. She's monitoring the evidence that I am capturing. It becomes evidence because I'm taking a picture of it, and it's relevant to evidence that is the P.O.C., the pattern of conduct, both the podcast and all of the images, all of the video that I have captured that is embodied on my website, and every iteration of that, even the website that I maintained before that I took down, the Facebook pages that I maintained, the Facebook page, and also just the Facebook has both the page that you can have for like a business purposes, and then also just like a regular Facebook page. I had both. I do not use them anymore, but they are both forms of evidence, which again remains relevant to the pattern of conduct that I remain ceaselessly subject to. And my publishing my evidence remains my evidence, also the entity that resorted to stealing evidence while engaging in surveillance as well. That's also relevant. But this is nonetheless a criminal means by the government to engage in copyright infringement, an unprecedented method of copyright infringement, stealing the ideas, the intellectual property of the person that the government is targeting for purposes of profiting from it. This is what Jason Isaac Fields is engaging in. And I want to be clear that this demon-possessed person that is abusing a government position belongs in federal prison, number one. And it is just the same with regard to his sex partner, Tracy Banks. If she belongs in a mental asylum for conspiring my murder and kidnapping, which is exactly what the evidence shows, and she's going to be prosecuted for engaging in gang stalking as well with the government, this is exactly what Jason Isaac Fields is subject to as well. And the law is not treating him or viewing him differently. And certainly myself, subject to his perverted and psychopathic targeting that has been sponsored by the government, whereby he's abusing a position within that government. There is no difference with regard to the person who's being gang stalked and the people who are gang stalking that person, regardless of whether they bear a badge that they are disqualified to bear and represent while they're engaging in domestic terrorism and psychological torture. Jason Isaac Fields is a part of the conspiracy to murder me, a part of the ongoing repeated acts of kidnapping, where this demon is inside of this apartment engaging in what is threats of criminal summoning by the gang stalking police. Jason Isaac Fields is a part of that same criminal pattern of conduct. He is to date engaging in what is monitoring. He is to date engaging in what is surveillance while the demon inside of the apartment is pacing around an engineer light. Jason Isaac Fields and the government is monitoring pursuant to the whole purpose of keeping engineered light. And the whole purpose of keeping everything I'm doing on the internet under surveillance. Monitoring inside of the apartment is accomplishing that. Understand how the U.S. government is a part of the criminal pattern of conduct. It is the gang stalker. The gang stalker that is the U.S. government is doing so with the people of the state. And Jason Isaac Fields is specifically interested in my demise and not being able to accomplish stealing my ideas, stealing my intellectual property via what is my being kidnapped, and also ultimately murdered, whereby under such circumstances he would still be engaging in what is a more frequent schedule of sodomy and sexual activity and sex rituals with Tracy Banks and all the men that he's sexually involved with. He would be engaging in that. But because I was not murdered, I am not defamed, the entity cannot psychologically torture me into a place of losing all of my wits. The entity was not capable to engage in that satanic attack against me successfully. This includes Jason Isaac Fields, who is currently in a position of government still monitoring. This is what I'm speaking to when the entity, which includes Jason Isaac Fields, is interrupting my sleep at all hours of night. That has nothing to do with a legitimate government body having any legitimate interest in what is harassment, terrorism, psychological torture upon monitoring. That's not a legitimate investigation. And this demon, that is Jason Isaac Fields, is gang stalking with the people of the state, including his sex partner, Tracy Banks, whom he would still be having anal sex with, but for my surviving the attempts that these demons waged upon my life by targeting me and targeting me with a population who are still engaging in the P.O.C., including the government and Jason Isaac Fields. It's not an investigation when you're engaged in psychological torture, when you're engaged in what is sex magic in the middle of the night, when you're interrupting my sleep, when you're engaging in what is satanic means of spiritually attacking, and also doing so with regard to monitoring. And this demon is obsessed with trying to convince me by attacking. A demon is no persuasive negotiator, and that's what Jason Isaac Fields is, spiritually attacking with regard to his obsession with trying to both psychologically torture, harass, gang stalk me into negotiating my intellectual property and sharing it with the government, which I'm not going to. And he is being documented. You're not sharing ownership of the intellectual property where you were the substance of that evidence. I've been documenting Jason Isaac Fields since 2018. Okay, his name is in the folder entitled "The People of the State." His whole name, Jason Isaac Fields. His Las Vegas number 702 is the area code. His recent address, which was in Las Vegas, Nevada, where he was gang stalking me with the state of Nevada, and also gang stalking with California, where he is engaging in a sexual relationship with Tracy Banks, who he is conspiring against me with the intent to target me. And then once I'm targeted, remember, I began documenting and publishing it on the internet in 2020. So I'm documenting before 2020, but I'm sharing it on the internet sharing it on the internet as of 2020. This is when the demons are seeking to engage in what is copyright infringement via gang stalking, which is not going to be supported or enforceable under federal law, state or federal law, under any circumstances. And Jason Isaac Fields is delusional. Not only is this a rapist, this is somebody that engages in what is having sex with people against their will by using witchcraft. It is as egregious as drugging someone. It is as egregious as using force against someone and engaging in sexual activity with them against their will. This is what the demon possessed do, by the way, using witchcraft to control what it is that you would ordinarily not do. The demons are not able to control me or what it is that I'm doing or what I will refuse to do. This is a rapist, and this is somebody that relies on witchcraft in every area of his life. And this is something that he learned, by the way, from the sex partner Tracy Banks, who is much more aged than he is, and where he learned a lot of his satanic practices, and he has taken it and sought to profit from it while in government. And this demon is literally delusional with regard to his spiritually attacking me like a demon. This is a spiritual enemy who is no friend of mine and who is also not going to share in ownership with my intellectual property, which I published online for the sole purpose of protecting myself from predators and murderers like Jason Isaac Fields. The entity engages in what is the use of witchcraft to take the life of American citizens, in case you did not know that. And then gang stalking police officers, gang stalking law enforcement agencies, resort to conducting autopsies and stating that it was a mere accidental death or an inexplicable loss of life or heart failure. These are general vague ways of addressing the ways in which the demon possessed are using witchcraft to take the lives of American citizens, perfectly healthy people. And you are not aware of the pattern of conduct. You're not aware of the demon possessed. You're not aware of the entity that is targeting American citizens. You're not aware of the use of witchcraft. And these are very real examples that I'm giving you of the entity that steals from American citizens, murders them using witchcraft, also engages in what is psychologically torturing them using witchcraft, also engages in what is sexually violating them, having sex with someone that ordinarily would not agree to it. But witchcraft is a means whereby they engage in things that they are doing so where the entity is using the spiritual realm to control the mind of another. Now, under natural law, because you're looking at a human being that is, under all accounts, voluntarily getting into bed with a demon that's using witchcraft over them, you don't have what is an action regarding rape. Okay, because you're talking about you're not using drugs to control this person or alcohol, for example. You can't say, oh, they put a roofies in my drink. You are under the influence of what is witchcraft, voodoo, sex magic, etc., that the demon possessed very often use to violate people that are ignorant and who are oppressed by it, and you're not even aware of it. You are even under the impression or belief that you actually like someone or you're in love with someone, and you're not. You're under spell work. These are the type of tactics that the demon possessed utilize in violating people, and this is something that I am spreading the word about, but I'm also going to enforce my rights. This is a demon, Jason Isaac Fields, who belongs in federal prison, and if federal prison is not based upon, again, the use of witchcraft, that just makes him a demon who was going, again, absent repentance, he's going straight to hell. But the concern with regard to prosecuting him under laws that exist, this demon possessed person who was a documented terrorist, a gang stalker, and abusing a government position in doing so, is on the record conspiring against my life, conspiring with the entity gang stalking me, which is proven in a body of evidence. And by virtue of my documenting him and his identity, his addresses, he's engaging in the pattern of conduct that I've been subject to for years before I started documenting it. And upon documenting it in 2018 and publishing evidence of that pattern of conduct that I remain subject to, which is satanic in its nature, on the venue of the internet. And gang stalkers such as Jason Isaac Fields and the government agency or agencies that are associated with this intellectual property thief, this would-be murderer, but for Christ Jesus, not permitting the demon possessed, their witchcraft, none of that is effective on me. And I am not only not bound by it or derailed by it, I am making sure that people are aware of it. And it's speaking to your need for not looking up spell work and not looking up voodoo priests and how you can have a demonic response to Satan. You are in need of Christ Jesus as your Lord and Savior, because the Holy Spirit alone, the blood of Christ, is what covers you from all of the iterations of death. This is what Satan is using. He uses people, and there are demonic spirits, and Satan is, again, in scripture referred to as a strong man, but Christ himself is the stronger man, as the parables speak to. This is a spiritual truth, and it is by the blood of Christ that I am covered and sheltered from the demonic works of people like my own mother, who is a witch. She's engaged in what is spiritually attacking me on a ceaseless basis. She is always obsessively looking for some place of vulnerability which does not exist. I am fully covered by the blood of Christ, and everything that she has sought to do spiritually is what she is going to experience. And it's not just her, it's those like Jason Isaac Fields who have engaged in sex rituals with her, who have engaged in summoning demonic spirits along with her, who are still to date spiritually attacking with her, and are doing so for profit. And this is what I want to expose with regard to copyright laws. No, I'm not speaking to the inability to still engage in copyright infringement because they're using witchcraft. I am speaking to the fact of federal group stalking and monitoring. The government targeting you, being the targeted individual, is under no circumstances going to make your intellectual property vulnerable to theft. Under no circumstances, not even an idea that is stolen from it, because the entity, but for targeting you, is never coming up with any of those ideas. The entity that resorts to criminal conduct of this level is under no circumstances. This is against what is public policy. This is disincentivizing what is terrorism and criminal conduct by a government and an entity, in other words, in order to steal from that targeted individual, which is, again, somebody that is unique, somebody that is gifted. That's why the government is targeting them. These are demons that know who the target individual is with regard to their giftedness, with regard to their abilities, and the entity that is targeting me, and then my creation, which was my intellectual property, which is evidence proving it, is that which the entity is interested in profiting from. And the very purpose, the spirit of the laws behind trademarks, behind copyrights, behind theft of intellectual property overall, is that which is going to serve to protect me in the same way. But for my being oppressed by this entity and being targeted by this entity, nothing that I am creating is going to benefit in any way, such as sharing in ownership and sharing in any aspect of my intellectual property, which has been created, remember, because the entity, including Jason Isaac Fields, sought to take my life, murdering me, gang stalking me with the police and kidnapping me by the police and physically attacking me with the police, by the police, is that which is done in further to trying to murder me, trying to get me in some circumstance where the police can literally take my life and psychologically torture me until the day that they can accomplish that. Jason Isaac Fields and Tracy Banks and the people of the state, the government itself, shall not under any circumstances at any level profit from, steal, or share in ownership of my intellectual property. And this is what Jason Isaac Fields, this is the demon that's spiritually attacking to date, is obsessed with. And this is part of the reason why the entity is still monitoring. Jason Isaac Fields represents that public entity that is obsessively consumed with voyeurism. This is somebody that is watching everything that I do, everything that I document, everything that I observe while this demon is monitoring in the spirit and is doing so. And this is a psychopath who was even sexually aroused while I expose him for the egregious criminal and sexually violent conduct. This is a psychopathic personality disorder. This is the product of demon possession. And this is somebody who was very sick, in other words, and I will be enforcing my rights under laws that exist to keep this predator, this terrorist, this domestic terrorist away from me, no contact, but also creating what are clearly delineated boundaries regarding my intellectual property that the government will unhand and will also be forced to acknowledge all the ways in which the entity sought to murder and kidnap me and then steal my evidence of it, which is my intellectual property. Right? The laws as they exist regarding copyright and trademark laws, etc., have never before contemplated the government, the entity, targeting an American citizen in order to accomplish copyright infringement. And that is what is unprecedented. And so it is speaking to what is enforceable with regard to being targeted by the government, but that which is also never before contemplated, and that is speaking to not just the material itself, but literally ideas generating from my intellectual property, which is going to be supported because the government is engaging in what is domestic terrorism and then seeking to engage in voyeurism, sitting back and taking notes and stealing my ideas and stealing my content as well, and then seeking to profit from it. That is inhumane. That is the most barbaric an uncivilized thing that a so-called U.S. government can engage in. And that's exactly what Jason Isaac Fields represents. That's what he's engaging in. That's what the government is engaging in. That's what Tracy Banks, this witch that is gang stalking and spiritually attacking her own daughter, sought to accomplish, but wanted to do it secretly, wanted to do it while appearing as a prophet, wanted to do it as the messenger, the one responsible for my content, but for your ability to see her driving away and walking away from the fake sun that doesn't remain over her. She's not the target individual. She's not the creator of the content, accordingly, and neither is her sex partner, the one praying to Satan with her while they're engaged in what is anal sex and group sex together. These are perverts, these are stalkers, these are bloodthirsty criminals. And none of that is going to serve for what is under any circumstances supporting what is protection of your intellectual property when it is necessarily published on the internet. And you have those who are criminals seeking to abuse a position of government. Your position of government is not entitling you to, first of all, avoiding federal prison, or second of all, stealing my content under any circumstances, stealing responsibility for it, stealing any involvement in it. Their involvement is threatening my life and my being forced to document it. Okay, it is currently 10:51 a.m. The entity is gang stalking, as I am proving through the specific environment inside of the apartment. If you'll recall the documentation that I'm capturing yesterday at 6:33 a.m. at 7:29 a.m. on video at 11:40 approximately. And the engineer light is behind the TV stand, up on the ceiling, remaining framing the front door. This is what Tracy Banks is inside of the apartment monitoring. She's monitoring while she's outside of the apartment. It's just that the demon is inside of the apartment participating in it with her sex partner. Okay, this sodomite, Jason Isaac Fields. Okay, it is currently 10:51 a.m. This is P.O.C. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel. the P.O.C., and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state. And it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. All right, it is currently 12:08 p.m. As you'll recall, right here at 6:33 a.m., the fake sun is positioned on the adjacent side of the building, reflecting off of Unit 48's window to create ridiculous light activity, such as my shadow appearing at a distance. And so you have what is 6 hours later, the fake sun is over my head, and it moves as I move back toward the front door. And in this building, the demons are stalking with amplified audible activity, and Tracy Banks is in the apartment. Remember, also engaging what is threatening to engage in criminal summoning, harassment, while the demons are monitoring. And the fake sun moves as I move. That's the City of Ontario gang stalking, amplified train, fake suns reflecting off of a window, demon using their vehicle. The ignition is running. Okay, getting out of the stalking and surveillance in the vehicles while the entities engage in psychological torture. This is the same demon gang stalk with the Ontario PD at 5 in the evening, 6842707, license 5PWZ767. This is surveillance. And they're sharing in psychological torture while they're maintaining activity creation in the parking lot for purposes of stalking. Remember, the fake sun's no longer over her front door, and this is not over Alvarado Gardens in Los Angeles. The Ontario Police Department is being prosecuted, disbanded, while the people of the state are gang stalking with them. Let me show you what's over here. This is Crossing Path, Title 18. And remember, the fake sun is over the roof of this building, like I documented, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's also over the same apartment complex that's looking at demons. They're just not wearing RGS uniforms. This is the entity that's gang stalking as one. And these are sex offenders. These are demons that are engaging in what is psychological torture while amplified booming is sounding inside of the apartment. As I walk outside, amplified train. As I walk outside the fake sun, the City of Ontario, that's the removal of Polyon, the prosecution of the gang stalking police department. This is P.O.C. It's all crossing path. None of this is sunlight. And it's also not sunlight when it's inside of the apartment. Nothing is causing the sunlight to be across Tracy Banks' ceiling, along the behind the front door, piercing through the peephole. It's all engineered light while they're sharing in psychological torture and doing so with impunity. While everything I'm publishing about this gang stalking, which is in furtherance of murder and kidnapping, while the people of the state are gang stalking as a community. LYNDA Reyes is going to federal prison. This is documentation of her impunity. Daryl J. Carter, AVANATH Capital Management's impunity. Gang stalking with what you understand to be RGS when they're under the fake sun, merely holding props at 6:33 in the morning. This is P.O.C. Amplified booming is psychological torture. Stalking, this is what they're sitting in their vehicles in engineer light monitoring. Sounding train activity, in engineer light monitoring. Amplifying booming noises inside of the apartment, in engineer light monitoring. That's P.O.C. Sex offenders monitoring my vagina as well. Coming onto the grounds, gang stalking with the population and residing by gang stalking by place of residence. That's not sunlight. Coming inside of the apartment on the floor and doing so as I leave from the couch to go to the kitchen, stalking with noise, which is again relevant to psychological torture. This is impossible light that's on the inside of the apartment where demons are engaging in gang stalking by residents. All 144 units are losing their housing. They're all going to be prosecuted also for federal stalking apart from gang stalking, and also the entity engaging in gang stalking with the intent to obstruct justice. That's relevant to federal prison, mental asylums, while you see them engaging in surveillance under the fake sun and engineer light. That's what they're engaging in, and they're engaging in conspicuous stalking while they're also monitoring the evidence against them, and they represent the state. This is what, by the way, Jason Isaac Fields is engaging in. He will under no circumstances share in ownership. The government will under no circumstances share in ownership of my intellectual property where my life is remaining under threat as well. And the government is monitoring with the entity that is demon possessed and engaging in surveillance and ongoing psychological torture and harassment and terrorism because I am documenting them as well. Their obsession with me is because they are indeed demon possessed. That's not sunlight. This is P.O.C. Tracy Banks is gang stalking on the opposite side of this wall. And this is where the fake sun is setting after 6 p.m. That's P.O.C. These are sex offenders and they're going to be prosecuted, including AVANATH's employees who are all going to prison. The demon that you heard laughing in the background, she's in Unit 41. They're going to mental asylums. P.O.C. All right, the video you just listened to is capturing the visible evidence of impunity by the state, which is acting via the city of Ontario, gang stalking aircraft right over my head, adjacent to that moving fake sun as I move from the front door to what is the parking lot. It's the same thing with stalking with activity inside of the apartment as I go from the couch to the living room. Amplified booming fills the apartment, and the two demons in use of their vehicles with regard to surveillance. And these are demon-possessed males who are monitoring and stalking a woman with impunity, and this is public corruption and sexual violence that the government, engaging in the pattern of conduct with them, are sharing and incentivizing with regard to public corruption and sexual perversion. The demons inside of units 33 through 64 are all going to federal prison, and so is LYNDA Reyes and every other employee at the venue, and they are doing the same thing at Woodside that RGS is doing, just wearing logos and operating a vehicle with the brand name on it. You're understanding what is the purpose of the fake sun documentation showing what is under no circumstances a natural environment. It's still going to be here at 3:37 p.m. You know that it's still going to be here at what is 5:40 p.m. You know that it's still going to be here at 6:13 p.m. You know that the entity is gang stalking as a elderly, unemployed, and severely mentally demented population who stalks with amplified noise, exhibiting mental instability, stalks with impossible light, exhibiting mental instability, and does more of it as I document, and they are more and more infuriated while they keep me under surveillance online, and I'm editing my website. I am protecting my rights with regard to copyright infringement via gang stalking and furtherance of murder and kidnapping. I am doing so while I'm publishing my evidence on a ceaseless basis because I'm subject to gang stalking on a ceaseless basis. And Tracy Banks' license 9HUZ740 is inside of the apartment, posing that unlawful threat. This is the same demon engaging in what is documented acts of severe neurotic disorder while she is engaging in what is verbalizing threats while she is gang stalking, and that's exactly what she's doing today under the exact same circumstances. Engaging in what is harassment and threatening behavior while you're gang stalking is the outward demonstration of a psychopath who is again engaging in what is a conspiracy to murder me, and then is harassing as I document the plot to murder me, which is literally the pattern of conduct. That's why the government is targeting American citizens and stealing the evidence of it. Remember, the substance of the demons that are representing the city of Ontario gang stalking in the airspace over a fake sun that's moving over me in real time. That's the city of Ontario that's not going to have Polly on as a mayor, and it's certainly not going to have a police department. And the people of the state at Woodside in particular are all leaving their apartment. The building itself is not going to be filled with any of these demons if AVANATH exists at all under the circumstances of being called Woodside Senior Apartments. But I am thoroughly prosecuting the whole apartment complex, and they are all in units 33 through 64 going to prison and mental asylums, and the ongoing impunity and malice is relevant to that inevitable sentencing. The entity is engaged in what is a sex offensive bathroom monitoring as well. As I get up on the couch and I go to the kitchen, and the entity is engaged in criminal interference with quiet enjoyment. That's with knowledge and anticipation of being documented. That's a stalker. That is in plain disregard of the rights of another, of inflicting harm, seeking to terrorize and threaten another. Doing so is also legally analyzed when the entity is flying right over my head in aircraft representing the municipality. Doing so when the entity is amplifying train activity representing the municipality, while the fake sun, which is the threat, communicated in unison by all of the demons that represent the U.S. government that's gang stalking in that specific environment. It is currently 12:17 p.m. and the demons in the two license plates that I recited, they're engaged in bathroom monitoring as well. So I want to make sure it's not just the two buildings that are subject only to what is federal prison and mental asylums. The rest of the property, including the demon in the truck, he's going to federal prison. I documented him gang stalking many times, specifically sharing in the elements with the Ontario Police Department, and he is still engaged in obsessively keeping my vagina under surveillance, doing so with this pedophile Tracy Banks inside of the apartment, doing so with in the specific environment where I'm being psychologically tortured with amplified audible activity, doing so in a manner as suggesting that he will not suffer the consequences that I have dictated to this demon while he's monitoring me before it happens to him. I want to make sure I recall his license plate again. Let me read it to you. All right, engaging in domestic terrorism and ongoing psychological torture with impunity and the intent to obstruct justice as 12:18 p.m. as I'm in operation on my device looking for the license plate. Amplified booming occurs again. This license plate 6 Apple 42707. This is an overweight Latino male gang stalking by engaging in surveillance in relevant position on the side of the building where he is stalking in the path, and he is stalking with light. He's engaged in federal stalking via communication devices. He is sharing in the elements of monitoring in real time while the entity's flying over my head by aircraft, and the sun that terrorizing environment that follows me is moving in real time while I'm documenting him and witnessing him stalking me. All right, while I'm documenting him, he is engaging in what is psychological torture, while amplified noise is sounding with the intent to harm, threaten, intimidate, monitor. All right, which is a threat to your life. While you're being monitored, the entity is threatening your life. While the entity is monitoring you and engaging in what is criminal interference with quiet enjoyment using amplified audible activity, the entity, including license 6A42707, is threatening my life, and that's relevant to how long he's going to federal prison. He's also a sex offender, monitoring my vagina, monitoring everything that's happening in a bathroom, stalking me in the bathroom. It is currently 12:19 p.m. The entity that's in the same building in particular are the demons in units 49 through 64. And they're all going to prison. The demons in Unit 51, Tracy Banks, and the demon in Unit 55, License 5WB715, they're going to mental asylums. But the two buildings in particular, they're both subject to what is an inevitable confinement, as you are prosecuting the people of the state that are gang stalking for the of murder and kidnapping and ceaselessly engaging in what is psychological torture and sexual violence with the intent to commit murder and kidnapping. You're going to prison for that. Okay, and as you demonstrate mental instability, meaning you are so neurotic that you are posing a threat to yourself and the public, as demonstrated through your engagement in the elements of monitoring, then you're going to a mental asylum as opposed to federal prison. And that is the people of the state being prosecuted. The entire property is going to walk away because they're leaving their apartment homes. They can't stay here at a HUD regulated property stalking women, and neither can AVANATH Capital Management violate HUD regulations by stalking an occupant in concert with the people through the malicious engagement of gang stalking. So the entire property, the entire operation is being prosecuted, but the demons in the particular units 33 through 64, they must face prison. They must face confinement. It is currently 12:20 p.m. This is relevant to what is bathroom monitoring as well. Remember, like I stated in the video, the fake sun is on the reflecting off of the buildings of units 33 through 48, and I'm walking outside at 12:06 in the afternoon, and the fake sun is still over the same building. Reflecting off of the building is the same thing. It's tantamount to being over the building. It is stalking with the fake sun, and it is entirely demonic. That is illustrative of the very severely Looney Tune-like minds that are very demented who are gang stalking me, and that's relevant to their diagnosis and their individualized prosecutions. The people of the state. It's 12:21 p.m. All right, it is indeed bathroom monitoring, surveillance underway with regard to the sex offense, the perpetual sex offense that Daryl J. Carter, AVANATH Capital Management, LYNDA Reyes, and every other employee, the people of the state, including Tracy Banks, all 144 units, specifically also those subject to confinement, while amplified noise sounds at 12:26 p.m., which is relevant to their monitoring of my genitalia in a private space with knowledge of the fact that the person that they are stalking is under all circumstances not consenting to that sexual violation of my person, of my rights, of my privacy, which again, the Ontario Police Department is monitoring my genitalia. Michael Gherkin and the Ontario Fire Department is monitoring my genitalia. The San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department is monitoring my genitalia in the bathroom at this apartment. And the entity is gang stalking with the Ontario International Airport, monitoring my genitalia between my legs, which is a matter of what is public information amongst the entity that is gang stalking as one, and doing so, which is proven through the maintenance of an environment that is supernatural to exist, and which is direct evidence of the intent to engage in what is monitoring elements with regard to criminal surveillance by the city of Ontario. That's a violent sex offender, while ongoing amplified noise is sounding at 12:27 p.m. an additional 4 times, while I name off all of the departments who are being simultaneously documented for prosecution for the perpetual sex offense upon federal group stalking and monitoring with impunity. Their obsession with my genitalia is duly noted, and it is relevant for removal from office, removal as the fire chief, removal as the police chief, removal as the mayor, removal from what is being over the sheriff's department as a kidnapping county sheriff, which is Shannon Dykes' position. The repeated kidnappings while monitoring my genitalia and stalking me, which they've also committed under the fake sun, which rises and sets here in concert with the same demons that are engaging in what is the gang stalking at an apartment complex, ceaseless engagement, what is criminal interference with quiet enjoyment as they stalk with light and as they stalk with amplified audible activity as an entity over 55, reliant on government assistance to pay their rent, which they are required to not violate HUD regulations, and being a sex offender and stalking a woman are clear violations of the HUD regulation, specifically 34 U.S.C. 12291. And the entity that is monitoring while I am documenting the stalker, that is engaging in more stalking behavior, more psychological torture, more sexual violence as I am documenting in real time, is speaking to the worthiness of removal from office, the disqualification of such sex offenders who are exposed as public officials, gang stalking, which is an oxymoron to be dealt with upon the prosecution of the state of California. The demons in units number 33 through 64 are acting with the corrupt government who is maintaining aerial surveillance and all manner of gang stalking, helping the elderly unemployed at Woodside, including Tracy Banks, license 9HUZ740, who is going to a mental asylum for targeting her own daughter, doing so in the most psychopathic and demented methods and malicious methods that one could fathom. In fact, you can't fathom, and that's why the P.O.C. is relevant for purposes of proving the satanic. The satanic is relevant to the malice of a corrupt government that targets American citizens in ways in which have never been heard of, and also ways in which defy the imagination, and it requires proof in order for you to witness it, in order to understand what are the harms inflicted by that gang stalking entity. Okay, it's currently 12:29 p.m. Ongoing amplified audible activity is relevant to federal stalking, surveillance, and the ongoing coincidental behavior of engaging in more amplified noise as I begin documenting. This is what the demons are doing while my panties are down and my legs are spread apart and my vagina is exposed, and they are all sharing in knowledge about that as well, which is an exceedingly violent sex offense committed by the public entity, committed by the fire chief, the police chief, the mayor, the entire Ontario City Council. The police are gang stalking with, again, airplanes and helicopters as well as the Ontario International Airport. Alan D. WAPNER is exposed as a severe elderly age sex offender who was monitoring this black woman's vagina, and that's why he is unfit to have any sort of position affecting the public, not only over the bus line Omnitrans, where I'm documenting gang stalking and surveillance, and I'm also documenting it amongst the Ontario International Airport, and that is also not a coincidence. All these public officials are being documented. They are going to be dealt with regard to the prosecution and the impunity that I'm confronted with when I am speaking to the demon-possessed who are engaging in criminal surveillance which is sexually perverted. Ongoing amplified audible activity as I start documenting right now, pursuant to bathroom monitoring, when they are monitoring my genitalia, which is sexual violence that, again, of an incestuous nature. This is what Tracy Banks is engaging in. She's monitoring my vagina. That's, again, a relative, and it's also a female, and it's also incestuous. It's sick and perverted, and this is what a gang stalking mother commits when she's targeting with the government. And she's going to be treated for her mental illness, which is no longer closeted, and it's shared with the demons that are stalked with amplified noise. They're going to be diagnosed with regard to their criminal engagement in the P.O.C., which is already proven beyond a reasonable doubt, by the way. The fake sun is sitting over this apartment, and it could not be anywhere in Los Angeles, where the LAPD has provided a body of evidence against the people of the state who are monitoring my vagina in the bathroom in this apartment at this facilitating venue where the sun rises and sets. This is P.O.C. regarding bathroom monitoring. The license plates that I just recited, they are engaged in that bathroom monitoring as well, engaging in surveillance, sitting in the car, masturbating while they know my panties are down, stalked with amplified noise, sharing in psychological torture, and doing more of it while their sexual violence and their obsessive and demonic stalking patterns are documented. This is P.O.C. It's 12:31 p.m. All right, it is currently 12:36 p.m. and like the evidence shows, like common sense and also logic, and as the evidence is provided, you follow the evidence. And like I stated before, the government, the U.S. government, Jason Isaac Fields, is gang stalking. He is criminally monitoring. He is engaging in psychological torture and not any legitimate investigation, sharing in the psychological harm inflicted, sharing in the criminal elements of monitoring, facilitating a government to continuously engage in it while you're engaging in that psychological torture, because engaging in what is the practice of witchcraft in the middle of the night, interrupting my sleep, trying to use sex magic to engage in something as perverted as trying to sexually excite me. This is a pervert that is engaged in the pattern of conduct with all these perverts monitoring my vagina. Jason Isaac Fields is monitoring my vagina as well. The U.S. government is doing so, and there is no warrant or probable cause. And the only reason there is a purported investigation is because my evidence that I single-handedly created in order to protect myself and prove that the government is full of demons who are stalking in order to profit, to defame and murder ultimately. They have been forced into this position, and while doing so, they're monitoring. That's not an investigation when you are adding to the harms inflicted. You are sitting back and surveying in order to prosecute, bring a case against the criminal, which you should not be taking part of it. You shall not be taking part of it. You are part of the crime. It's the same criminal conspiracy, and that's what Jason Isaac Fields is a part of, and is also very desperate to share in what is my intellectual property, my content, which is not going to be the case at all, especially while I am documenting him engaging in what is psychological torture, gang stalking me with these demons that are engaged in amplified booming, amplified plane activity, stalking me by helicopter, gang stalking with the same hitman Tracy Banks, and doing so threatening to engage in criminal summoning and harassing me because I'm documenting in order to protect myself and enforce my rights. And Jason Isaac Fields is in the middle of the night interrupting my sleep like a demon who is stalking, engaging in voyeurism, and engaging in what is obsessing over my process as I document and as I'm experiencing gang stalking. That's very sick, that voyeuristic, and that's very sick. That's what the demon possessed do. They sit back and gang stalk, they engage in psychological torture and see how it affects you, and then engage in that ongoing cycle. These demons are doing so, and they're going to prison in units 33 through 64. Jason Isaac Fields is no exception to that. Okay, and there is no investigation when you're engaging in what is sex magic in the middle of the night because you're a demon who is in denial about the fact that you had sex with my mother, who's a witch who was plotting to kill me. And you are not reasonably ignorant about that conspiracy. You are fully a part of it, and your disdain for accepting how repugnant and how excruciating you are to bear as a human being is your own problem. That's between him and Jesus. I'm going to prosecute him, though. And the law does not treat him any different. He belongs out of law enforcement permanently, like any other gang stalking law enforcement agent or officer, and he belongs in federal prison. I am still calculating and accumulating on a daily, as you're witnessing, moment by moment basis. And what Alvarado Gardens, the people of the state, the city of Ontario is engaging in, the government, Jason Isaac Fields is engaging in. It is currently 12:39 p.m. The entity is always in a position, when you're understanding this, the entity of these demons, they're harming themselves, they're harming their interests, they're placing themselves, with regard to my evidence, all I have to do is document. That's it. And not even that, you're talking about the level of evidence. You're going to prison and then you're just not going to get out. That's what you're going for. That's fine with me. Terrorists don't need to be free, roaming the streets without an adequate label, without adequate restraints, where you're looking at this appetite to harm other people for no reason whatsoever, or because you are a delusional psychopath that will never have what you want with another person that wants nothing to do with you because you grossed them out and you tried to kill them. This is psychotic, what the entity is engaging in, and Jason Isaac Fields is fully engaging in that. And this is what the court will be mindful of. It will be at the forefront of the minds of the court that will, under all circumstances, be obliged to grant me sole ownership of all of my intellectual property created in order to enforce my rights and protect myself from the entity that's gang stalking in order to engage in copyright infringement and trademark infringement. This is patently absurd, and it's a level of criminal conduct that is under no circumstances to be tolerated. And just like gang stalking has never before been contemplated, that's because it's the government itself, by the way. That's because it's a product of public corruption. That is speaking to the reasons why and more that I am fully entitled to justice in the way in which I have clearly articulated and supported with evidence. It is 12:40 p.m. The demons are gang stalking with impunity, and guess who's putting themselves in federal prison? AVANATH's employees at Woodside, AVANATH's residents in the two buildings, 33 through 64, the entity that's gang stalking, as I'm speaking to the government in the city of Ontario. They are already aligned with what is inevitable when you are gang stalking as a city. Every department, which I've literally documented Ontario that thoroughly, but this is speaking to what every city, any city that I go to, what you've witnessed Ontario engaging in, this is what the city is engaging in. This is what the government, this is how public corruption is executed with regard to gang stalking. That's how Ontario is going to be used with regard to a template for understanding this system that's underway in the country in this specific environment. Now, the government itself, you're talking about necessary removal and a prosecution because the level of public corruption is egregious. It's nauseating. It's something that no one would believe but for the evidence. And even the evidence is something that you would like to try to jerk and avoid and give excuses. There's no excuses. There are no excuses for what the government has committed and what an American citizen, myself, had to single-handedly prove, because the government is in no position, as the entity is demonstrating today on Thursday, May 22nd, that it is in no position to force itself to stop engaging in what is inhumane and unconstitutional violations of an American citizen. If it could get away with murdering me, if it could have gotten away with kidnapping via criminal defamation, that's exactly what the U.S. government would have done. It is currently 12:42 p.m. This is P.O.C. License 5WB712, that's Unit 55. License 6A42707, license 7YEH777. And the rest of these third parties, I'm going to read these license plates in the parking lot. They're engaging, the demons engage in what is harassment when they're hostile because they're documented. And again, these are sex offenders, these are murderers, these are kidnappers who are mad because they're being exposed for being murderers, for being sex offenders, for being stalkers, etc. So these are the psychopaths. Sitting around between buildings 49 through 64 and 65 through 84 are the demons that are gang stalking. You'll see the fake sun over my head. It is 4:34 p.m. That's amplified audible activity, while the demon with license 6A42707, where you saw over the same building at 12 o'clock, the fake sun's in the same position as I take a picture of the fake sun going right back over to Unit 70, and that's where the fake sun is positioned. They're engaging in surveillance, sitting on the benches. His license plate is 6A42707 in the company of the rest of the demons, and they're all going to be prosecuted. As you hear the amplified train, Union Pacific Railroad, you cannot hear at Woodside. You also know that it's amplified audible activity for monitoring because the fake sun is over the same apartment that it was at 12 o'clock and that it was at 6:33 in the morning. That is the police department that's monitoring my genitalia. That is the mayor that's monitoring my genitalia. That is the elderly population. Let me read you the license plates of all these demons who are all losing their housing. 6GFM416, 8GIX018, 6YGM131, 9HRS967, 8WEY298, 077XV, handicap, that's federal prison for him, and F50FIVE, he's federal prison, 6YOZ533, he's federal prison, 9EXJ932, handicap MW904, handicap, 9RUY822, 8MUB992, 9EXJ932, 7X82385, J Powers, JPOWERS, license 9MSJ525, 8PSB005, 34809, handicap, 8SKM864, 7ZERO72, 8FAF951, NS580, handicap, 9FUT242, 9BUP491, 9SNX397, 5TNM830. JPOWERS is J Powers, that's driving by under the fake sun, that's at G Street. That's a white Chevy. Gang stalking with the entity that's sounding train activity. The fake sun is remaining over me. 7NSY150. And the entity is keeping the fake sun as I'm walking through the parking lot. J Powers is documented gang stalking with Amazon Prime under the 5:04 p.m. fake sun. He is gang stalking me. Now, he's been engaged in gang stalking with Woodside for years. He's losing his housing, as are all of them. But those that I'm documenting gang stalk with Ontario, they're going to federal prison. And they're gang stalking now while the entity sounds train activity, which is impossible audible activity. The entity is doing so while I'm inside of the couch. This is why I'm walking outside and getting the fake sun and the amplified audible activity method, which tells on the entire city that it's monitoring under a fake sun. That is the entity that is doing so while all of them are focused on me sleeping inside of the apartment. Let me read these license plates real quick. 8PSB005, I read that one. 8MUB992, 9R, yeah, I read all these. Just want to make sure I get those. They are engaging what is amplified audible activity and sensational activity creation. The entity is sounding what sounds like a large truck. You already witnessed what is criminal summoning by the Ontario Fire Department at 12:42 in the afternoon, where those demons didn't sound the sirens coming down the street. Those demons sound the sirens as they were already present adjacent to Woodside under the 12:42 p.m. fake sun, monitoring with the elderly people. All 144 units are prosecuted for stalking together, as sex offenders and demons do. The entity is sounding sirens, which is again stalking in violation of the Violence Against Women Act, and doing so with impunity. These are stalkers that are violating federal law, and their impunity is notable with regard to their prosecution. 9EGS331, 7VCK397, sounding more train activity at 4:38 p.m. as I mentioned it. 6EHL971, DBUNI, that's the demon engaging in criminal summoning with the Ontario Fire Department and with the Ontario Police Department. That's federal prison for D Bunny and the Black Mercedes. 4UXU258, 8934U, that's handicap, and 5EUG147. This is that Latino male accessing unit number 70. that I documented under the 3 p.m. fake sun. Let me show you the fake sun that's right over here over me, where the entity is sounding Union Pacific as the mode of audible activity that's amplified over the parking lot where the fake sun is rising. And where I am at 4:38 p.m. and the entity is keeping a fake sun where J Powers is group stalking at parking spot number 70. It's 4:38 p.m. Alrighty, the demons in units 65 through 84, that's where I'm standing at Vine Avenue, where the people of the state are pacing on Vine Avenue, monitoring. And this is, again, a shared sexual offense where the entity is monitoring together. That's the people of the state maintaining surveillance as they drive on G Street, as they drive on Vine, surrounding the property, while the entity is surrounding with amplified audible activity, which is satanic. It's not the sound of the actual train. It's like the demon that paces in Unit 55 that is not causing the ceilings to crack and the walls to crack. It's also like the demons that fly gang stalking in helicopters that do not cause an earthquake in the building. It's like the sun that sits over the building for 11 hours, which the sun does not naturally do either. This is the people of the state. This is the city of Ontario. This is the mayor, Paul Leon. This is that municipality altogether, and the population that's going to be prosecuted by Daryl J. Carter's criminal engagement, as his property is the basis of federal prison for the employees. While amplified train is a terrorizing means of amplified audible activity, while the entity is not only gang stalking an American citizen, but gang stalking an American citizen that is documenting it. And that ongoing incessant sound of train activity is an admission and a willingness and the depravity also of that population that is gang stalking with knowledge of it. And this is also relevant because they're all not only communicating that they don't need housing, which whether they need it or not, they're losing it, but that they are in plain disregard of the laws surrounding their ability to receive federal housing benefits, while the entity is gang stalking with them. By sounding train activity under the fake sun, the demons are engaging in monitoring together. And doing so, again, as I mention it, that's the ongoing engagement in that pattern of conduct. So that's speaking to impunity. This is P.O.C. Let me get you the fake sun where I am at the same apartment building where I was at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Alrighty, that's the people of the state and the license plates that are currently on the in the parking lot where the entity is maintaining the elements of monitoring in concert with the residents who are, again, not in any exercise of any constitutional rights. They're gang stalking by residents, and that is not protected by the Constitution. And everybody in the units 33 through 64 are also subject to federal prison for that. The entity sounding train activity is speaking to the impunity of the gang stalking residents who are going to federal prison for that. The entity keeping the fake sun remaining over me as I walk through the parking lot is speaking to the impunity of the gang stalking residents who are going to federal prison for that. And the removal of all the sex offenders, the public officials, including the fire department, the police department, the Ontario International Airport, and the demonic use of what is a train that you cannot hear in any building and you can literally hold in the midst of a trial. That's something that's certifiable by any sort of means to test that the entity is engaging in. Demonic means of monitoring, demonic means of stalking, surveillance, and the impossibility that you would ever hear the Ontario train, meaning the Union Pacific Railroad train tracks. That's relevant to the entity intentionally monitoring, as intentional as keeping the fake sun over the same apartment building, which I'm also going to get a picture of. It's currently 4:42 p.m. We're 7YEH 777. The demon in unit number 43 is gang stalking by sitting in engineer light, which is purposeful for purposes of monitoring, stalking in the path, where you don't have to talk to the person you're stalking, to the person you're terrorizing, to the person you are engaging in psychologically targeting with that entity. That surrounds with satanic means of activity, such as a train that you cannot hear, even when you're at the train tracks and you get aboard the Amtrak train, for example. I've ridden on the train, I've ridden in planes. Your ears are not bleeding. You cannot hear it through all of the city. You can't hear it in the apartment. You're not going to hear it on the property. And the entity engages in that ongoing asinine behavior with the fake sun, with the engineered light, and with the audible activity. And all of the defendants in units 33 through 64 are going to prison. It is currently 4:43 p.m. The people of the state whose license plate I just read represent the people that are on the grounds right now engaging in the elements of monitoring, but the entire property, regardless of work schedule, regardless of being out at the mall, being on the freeway, being headed home from work, the entire property is being prosecuted. It's a facilitating venue where the city of Ontario is engaging in very obvious surveillance. And this is, again, the government that has given up on any intention to engage in it in any stealth manner or any surreptitious manner, while they are speaking to what is impunity while engaging in domestic terrorism. That's how that's also relevant. It's not just just the fact that they are clearly and obviously demons and corrupt and also obsessed stalkers, but in violent sex offenders, it's that the entity is doing so with impunity. That's relevant to the removal of office of demon-possessed terrorists like Paul Leon and the entity that is gang stalking. Union Pacific is a state actor, and that it's also speaking to, albeit the impossible noise creation by the train. It's relevant to prosecuting that train line, the city, the municipality, for a period because of the entity implicating the Union Railroad as a means of what is maintaining the element of audible activity. I'm opening the front door because the entity is gang stalking while I'm inside of the apartment. And while I'm in the apartment, and the engineer light is around the same front door that it is in the morning, in the afternoon, and what remains in the evening until as late as 7, Tracy Banks walks in and she's molesting me with light that's manifesting out of nowhere. The entity is, by the way, sounding train activity at 4:42 p.m. the Ontario International Airport. This is Alan D. Wapner, this aged fake Jew. This is a demon that wears clothing speaking to some sort of religion as him being a Jew. This is a demon, and by the way, being a traditional Jew does not mean that you are not a demon-possessed person, that you're not wicked, that has nothing to do with your salvation. Clearly, this person is demonic. This is why there's gang stalking going on with the Ontario Police Department, the Ontario Police Department, but the Ontario International Airport that he is the president over. He's also on the gang stalking Ontario City Council. He is also within leadership of the gang stalking Omnitrans that's engaging in state surveillance, and it's entirely satanic. So this demon that wears what is Jewish attire on his head is speaking to those who call themselves Jews who still are in a position where you need to accept Christ Jesus as your Lord and Savior, or you're going to bust hell wide open, just like Alan D. Wapner, who I'm going to have removed from the position that he's holding while domestic terrorism is underway on his watch, what he knows all about. There's no coincidence with the entity utilizing this level of resources with the municipality and somebody that is in position not being aware of it. It is facilitated by these demons who are in these positions that they're going to be removed from. And this is, again, the gang stalkers that hide behind, demons that hide behind the guise of religion. Alan D. Wapner represents that. This is a demon. This is a sex offender. This is a psychopath. And he wears clothing in order to represent what is Jew. I don't believe that Jewish people would appreciate being associated with the likes of a sex offender and a domestic terrorist like Alan D. Wapner, but that's exactly what he is. And he's also engaged in what is stalking with impunity, while the corrupt airlines of the Ontario International Airport are engaged in what is systematic surveillance, systematic domestic terrorism, which is another basis for shutting down that Ontario International Airport altogether, while the entity sounds amplified plane activity, and that fake sun is over the same apartment building that it was at 12:08 p.m. and that it was at 6:33 in the morning, which is a scientific impossibility, meaning there is no reasonable basis for you to question what is Alan D. Wapner's condition. This is indeed a demon and a corrupt one who is making a lot of money off of gang stalking in the city of Ontario, in the state of California, and that is exactly what needs to change. While the elderly are sitting around with no jobs, gang stalking under the fake sun with the municipality that provides amplified audible activity for their gang stalking and sexual violence purposes. These are demons that are engaging in what is documented as also retaliation. Moments ago, I did upload the video speaking to what is all of them who are going to federal prison, and it is specifically the bathroom monitoring, which the demons who are engaging in sexual violence engage in more sexual violence, which is what I just documented, while a bunch of predators over 55 collecting government resources to pay their rent are monitoring at an apartment complex, stalking a woman in an apartment, and doing so with the entity that's sounding train activity, which you cannot hear, speaking to audible activity, light activity, relevant positioning, and plane activity, which you cannot hear when the planes are taking off from Terminal 2 and Terminal 4 at the Ontario International Airport, where you are immediately taking off at a sharp incline into the sky space and not hovering anywhere over Woodside Senior Sky Space, anywhere over this zone, by the way. And it's also not going to be heard under any circumstances. But you know this because the fake sun is sitting over me at this apartment complex, which is speaking to the sex offender that is Alan D. Wapner. The entity is engaging in this while I'm on the couch inside of the apartment. And this is when the entity is engaging with a sensational activity. These are the petty, albeit very highly psychologically harmful tactics of the U.S. government government that Jason Isaac Fields is a part of, gang stalking me with these demons, collecting government resources to pay their rent while they're engaging in terrorism with the government, that is acting via the city of Ontario. This is the entity that is gang stalking with Tracy Banks, a hitman that's acting with her apartment complex, her neighborhood, the community, that's acting with the city of Ontario, and which is the U.S. government engaging in surveillance as I remain at the facilitating venue. This is the entity that is engaging in surveillance on the venue of the internet, and this is a documented act of retaliation after I'm documenting sex offenders by license plate, by name, by image, and by address, by location at the facilitating venue. And it's also documenting Daryl J. Carter and what is AVANATH Capital Management, where you will see the sun over the same exact apartment building that it's over at 6:33 in the morning, reflecting off of the windows off of the same building that the demon in unit number 46, I believe, is sitting in front of, license 7YEH777, the overweight Latina gang stalking under the 11 a.m. sun. That's over the same parking lot right now where I'm walking around at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. She is clearly gang stalking with that intent and purpose and engaging in what is a very defeated, feudalistic effort at what is retaliation by sex offenders who are hostile because they're being exposed as sex offenders. When Alan D. WAPNER and Mike Lorenz and the demons of the AVANATH Capital Management workforce at Woodside, when the sex offenders of the city of Ontario, when the predators, the pedophiles and the rapists and the stalkers over the age of 55 collecting government resources at Woodside Senior Apartments, which is reflecting the corrupt civilization, the corrupt population gang stalking in the city of Ontario, which is occurring throughout the state, because the sun that's remaining over me is letting you know what everybody's condition is in California and what everyone is doing in California, and they're pacing in engineered light. They're monitoring in this state, and these are hostile sex offenders, and they engage in what are acts of satisfying their psychopathic desire to harm another person, and I have the ability and the audacity to expose them as the sex offenders that they are, in fact, because they're keeping my genitalia, my vagina, under surveillance, and they are engaging in stalking, not I. They are engaging in what is gang stalking, not I. They are the demons that failed in what is accomplishing criminal defamation and with the ultimate purpose of murder, not I. And so I'm documenting it, and I'm documenting sex offenders by name, including Paul Leon, including Alan D. WAPNER, Michael Gherkin, Mike Lorenz, the entity that is gang stalking as a municipality, the gang stalker that is Union Pacific Railroad, because the entity is utilizing what is impossible to hear, but it is speaking to the engagement in the pattern of conduct by the train tracks, which is a reference to interstate commerce. The entity is gang stalking by the use of the trains, planes, helicopters, like I have stated. The entity is doing so with regard to the maintenance of elements. So this is relevant to, again, a criminal act of retaliation. You can look at it's 4:51 p.m. You will see documented on today's playlist for May 22nd, 2025, what is the sex offenders who are gang stalking on a ceaseless basis. And as I show you their images, this is what you are reminded about. And this is the podcast that's going to be connected to that. So you can see the sex offenders, all of them who are losing their apartment homes, and they're also going to have a criminal record as terrorists who are violent sex offenders, so that they cannot perpetrate exactly what they're doing now, engage in sexual violence, engaging in what is stalking as an entity with tremendous impunity and malice that the municipality is demonstrating for them. The ongoing incessant sound of the train, that's relevant to the impunity that the demon-possessed share while they're engaging in criminal conduct that they are all going to be individually held accountable for. And that's why I'm detailing it, because this is exactly what is going to be relevant in court against the U.S. government, demons like Jason Isaac Fields, who will not be sharing in any of my intellectual property ownership and will be handing over everything that that demon profited from while stealing from me, and I remain subject to this very criminal system in hopes of psychological harm that is irreversibly traumatic. So that they can accomplish, for example, my engagement of what is suicide, which I would never commit. The entity wants to take my life and then claim that it's suicide while gang stalking me in the ways in which I'm still subject to it. Jason Isaac Fields and the U.S. government that has sought to steal my intellectual property is going to be held accountable for the criminal acts committed in furtherance of seeking to profit from theft of my intellectual property, misrepresentation regarding ownership of my intellectual property that I am creating in order to expose sex offenders like the aged at Woodside Senior Apartments, like Tracy Banks, who's gang stalking with all of her neighbors, gang stalking with the city of Ontario. All right, the entity is doing so with impunity. That is, they're engaging in the pattern of conduct while they're hostile because they are keeping the evidence about them engaging in the pattern of conduct under surveillance. That is, again, why every single last one, all 144 units are going to be prosecuted. The apartment complex name itself, AVANATH, Woodside, is going to be prosecuted. And its employees at the apartment, they're going to federal prison. And they're going to mental asylums. As you hear amplified train activity, that is speaking to severe mental illness. That's entirely demented to stalk with a method of noise that's not even naturally occurring. It's entirely demented to stalk in an environment that's entirely manufactured. It's entirely demented to stalk with the manifestations of light that's occurring out of nowhere. These are demonic iterations of how you're monitoring as an entity, as a community, in order to psychologically harm another. That is speaking to the mental health that is going to be at the forefront of every single defendant that is residing and working at Woodside Senior Apartments, and also the demons that are going to be prosecuted and removed from position, including Michael Gherkin, the Ontario Fire Department, Mike Lorenz, the Ontario Police Department, Alan D. Wapner, the Ontario International Airport, Paul Leon, the gang stalking sex offender, the fake pastor hiding under the guise of religion, where he is a demon-possessed criminal, a violent sex offender keeping my vagina under surveillance, which is what his wife should be very much concerned about, as opposed to what is his feigning being a pastor. He does not actually, he hates Christ Jesus. That's why he's gang stalking me. And he's also doing so by abusing a government position that he's not going to hold on to. And everybody else on the Ontario City Council. All right. This is relevant to, again, a criminal act of obstruction based on what is my documentation about the entity monitoring in a bathroom, which is the sexual violence of the gang stalkers. No target individual is in any position where you're to blame for psychopaths that are hostile because you are exposing them. To the contrary, you're going to prosecute the sex offenders for engaging in such acts of terrorism because they are mad because the demons lose. And that's very psychopathic. That's very disturbing. And it's a national security threat. As you are aware of surveillance that's underway throughout the country, and the condition of those that are in this environment monitoring, and the very sick mind state, and the attitudes that they hold, and the behavioral patterns that they engage in and replicate while they are exposed, and while they are facing consequences, the demon-possessed will engage in more harm, more violence. And that's exactly what's demonstrated as I walk outside and get that fake sun. Remember the time frame where I'm capturing that fake sun. Remember the time frame when I'm capturing that same specific environment under the same circumstances, the sun being over me in that same parking lot at the same property at 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 o'clock in the morning. It's currently 4:55 where the entity was sounding plane and train activity as a means of gang stalking by all the residents who are all losing their housing. And they are also going to be prosecuted in order to make sure that they are documented and labeled as violent sex offenders and domestic terrorists who are subject to what is terrorism, subject to what is a deportation if they are not natural born citizens, and they're subject to federal prison, those that I've documented living in the specific units where federal prison is unavoidable, and also gang stalking with the police department, like as I've documented and as I identified. It is currently, and as the documentation, because it's not just me, I don't have to remember every single, it's on the record already, and they're going to prison as I documented it. It is currently 4:56 p.m. The entity is doing so with regard to the U.S. government's engagement in the P.O.C. So while the state of California is monitoring, the U.S. government is going to be prosecuted for it. The U.S. government that's monitoring, the U.S. government that's engaging in psychological torture, the U.S. government that's engaged in what is 24-hour surveillance, which is entirely unlawful, and it is not pursuant to any law-abiding, authorized investigation about the entity that is gang stalking, and I am the one that's capturing evidence about it. Me, myself. It is currently, again, 4:57 p.m. This is P.O.C. That's amplified plane activity under the fake sun, monitoring. Yeah, here you go. You can't hear that from inside of the apartment. The entity is gang stalking by commercial planes in the same way that you can't hear the train. The entity is targeting with the amplified audible activity creation pursuant to my documentation of Alan D. Wapner keeping my vagina under surveillance. The demon-possessed engage in what are acts of retaliation. There is no airport where they're from Terminal 2 or Terminal 4 where you're hovering over the sky space over Woodside Senior Apartments. And there's another plane over here flying in the path. None of that are you going to hear inside the apartment. This is happening under the fake sun. It's over this same apartment building at, I'm documenting at 6:33 in the morning when I'm capturing the fake sun right here at this which was yesterday morning, where the entity is gang stalking. And this is again, the ridiculousness of the pattern of conduct. This is Alan D. Wapner. That's making a personalized threat while commercial planes are then flying over and engaging in what is monitoring me as I'm documenting him by name on the podcast where Alan D. Wapner, the City of Ontario, is engaged in surveillance. This is the same with regard to the Ontario Police Department, the same with regard to Paul Leon, the Ontario City Council, who are gang stalking with the unemployed elderly at Woodside in the specific environment. And Alan D. Wapner shall be subject to what is a prosecution while he has been engaged in what is threatening my life by keeping me under surveillance and gang stalking me via commercial airline planes from the Ontario International Airport, where there is no route from the airport at Terminal 2 and Terminal 4, where they would even be hovering over this multifamily zone, and where they are flying pursuant to any takeoff schedule at the Ontario International Airport, or where they would be interfering with quiet enjoyment. They're gang stalking with the people of the state under the fake sun. All right, looking perplexed is no iteration deviating from the P.O.C. They are monitoring me while you're looking at the fake sun adjacent to his patio. This is a demon, and they're all monitoring together, and gang stalking by commercial planes is the prosecution of the president over that Ontario International Airport. He's also monitoring my vagina in the bathroom. He's a violent sex offender who knows very well about my documenting him. And while Alan D. Wapner wants to communicate a threat by gang stalking by commercial planes, Alan D. Wapner is going to end up in federal prison. He's not too old for it. This fake Jew is a violent sex offender and engaging in documented acts of retaliation while commercial airline planes fly over this senior citizen complex, which should not be interfering with quiet enjoyment. It is because it's engagement in the elements of monitoring under the fake sun. It is currently 5 p.m. where the sun is not going to be here at 6:33 in the morning, reflecting off of this window on the second floor, Unit 48. It's not going to be over my head at 10:54 where the Ontario Police Department, the same City of Ontario, is gang stalking me on video by helicopter and still over the same building at 5 p.m. That's the Ontario International Airport targeting with simultaneity to my documenting sex offenders, predators, terrorists like Alan D. Wapner, a fake Jew, a demon-possessed one. It is currently 5 p.m. This is P.O.C. Daryl J. Carter is going to be in AVANATH Capital Management. They are going to be subject to civil and criminal damages while impossible light activity is appearing. Understand, look at this right here. This is impossible light activity where you're targeting me with the amplified sound of planes, which is not a natural audible noise that I could possibly hear. This is also not possibly natural light. And I'll show you why, because this is all shade. There's the light out there. The fake sun's over the same building. That's supernatural. This is light manifesting above my head. This is supernatural. This is the fake sun remaining over the same apartment building since the last video at 12:08 p.m. That's supernatural. That's understanding that Alan D. Wapner is very much personalizing what is gang stalking with commercial planes as I'm documenting that sex offender and identifying him for the good of the public, for you to know that a fake Jew and fake pastors who are public officials in Ontario are gang stalking a woman, and doing so with the intent to obstruct justice. And all you're going to do is get a personalized prosecution. You're already being removed from office. You will be subject to a federal prosecution. Okay? The entity is engaging in this, and I'm documenting it because I'm going to prosecute it. And everybody at Woodside, they're already losing their apartment homes. And those in units 33 through 64, gang stalking with the Ontario International Airport, they're going to prison. And their impunity is shared with the demons gang stalking in commercial airline planes. Every single airline associated with the Ontario International Airport are posing a national security threat. They're engaged in domestic terrorism. Those are the demons that fly into helicopters on purpose. Those are the demons that fly into mountains. They fly into buildings, murdering people. They're demons who are gang stalking me. This is P.O.C. It's currently 5:02 p.m. In the engineer light, that's the pattern of conduct. I cannot hear the planes from inside of this apartment. My walking out and getting it is pursuant to their targeting me in the same way targeting with amplified train activity, which you also can't hear. The sun doesn't remain over one building, which is also supernatural. Sunlight is not manifesting while it's shade outside and all the windows are closed. This is the pattern of conduct, which is satanic. And you need to understand that this fake Jew, Alan D. Wapner, is a demon. This is P.O.C. All right, the video you just listened to, this is relevant to the Ontario International Airport, Alan D. Wapner, who I am speaking about. The Ontario Police Department has done this many, not even multiple, tons and tons of times, okay? As I document them by name, the demons engage in what is the elements of monitoring. This is exactly what's happening with the Ontario International Airport, and specifically Alan D. Wapner is the corrupt official that is demon-possessed who feigns being a Jew, an actual Jew. But let me be clear, actually, you can be Jewish and not be saved. You can be Jewish and be demon-possessed. If you think that some sort of traditional identity, this is not to be offensive. I'm just going to be very frank. You are not saved by traditions. Clearly, Alan D. Wapner is demonstrating that to you. He can wear the headdress all he wants. This is a demon. This is also a corrupt actor. His criminal conduct is also a testimony to the fact that he does not know God whatsoever. And he is also corrupt while planes are flying over me in the specific environment with simultaneity to my documenting him by name. In the same way that the entity is gang stalking, monitoring is a very specific and personalized crime. So Alan D. Wapner is going to rapidly find himself in a prosecution personalized for him as well, while the entity is gang stalking with commercial planes. But right now, today is not the only day that's supporting that. I've been documenting Alan D. Wapner. I've been documenting the gang stalking via the Ontario International Airport. To do so while I'm capturing podcasts and immediately going into video, speaking to the absence of coincidences in the specific environment where you're gang stalked by commercial planes in an area, in a zone where planes are not taking off whatsoever. You're certainly not doing that from the San Bernardino International Airport. You're not doing that from the Upland Airport. You're not coming from the LA Airport, and you also aren't hovering over the Woodside Senior Apartments from the Ontario International Airport, and you certainly aren't going to be heard whatsoever. They are targeting with amplified plane activity and impossible light activity under the fake sun that's impossible to be the natural environment where it's present over this building in video just today from 12:08 to the present time, 5 p.m. That's 5 hours of it sitting over the one building. And that's just the 2 videos today. Alan D. Wapner is being documented very, very personally. And sir, while you want to monitor my vagina and while you're hostile to my documenting you as a sex offender, I suggest you tread very carefully, because I will prosecute you as an individual. As an individual, that's exactly what the law provides for me to do, where you are engaging in domestic terrorism. You can lose your job and your position and those paychecks where you're engaging in systematic terrorism like an old man, or you can face federal prosecution and go to prison. The latter actually serves the public better. But as I document the entity gang stalking with commercial planes that are attributed to the Ontario International Airport, it's a very personalized threat, an unlawful one by the government, which is under your name. And I will be prosecuting the city of Ontario and Alan D. Wapner as I document, and you are aware of it. You are threatening my life, and I will prosecute for that. Any American citizen shall prosecute for that, where the United States government is engaging in domestic terrorism in concert with the people of the state. It becomes very personal, just like the crime of monitoring. If you don't like being exposed for monitoring my vagina, then I suggest you stop it. You're a dirty old man. The entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct with specific knowledge about everything that I'm documenting. And to engage in acts of documented retaliation is very foolish, because as my documentation shows, I tend to embarrass you more. The entity is engaging in this with the defendants in units 33 through 64 who are under the fake sun. The fake sun that's over the same apartment building. You're not looking down at me wondering, what is she talking about, when the fake sun is sitting adjacent, not above, it's sitting adjacent to your patio. That's a demon that's stalking in the path. That's also monitoring my vagina with this old sex offender that's feigning to be a Jew. This is a Satanist. Okay, this is Alan D. Wapner, who I'm referencing. While airlines associated with the Ontario International Airport, a gang stalker, are engaging in domestic terrorism. 2 of them pacing in the sky space as I'm walking outside, and the fake sun moves as I move. From the front door back to the front door, engineer light fills the apartment of Tracy Banks. It's manifesting in the shade. That is speaking to the gang stalking, while the elements of monitoring are underway in a supernatural means, because you cannot hear those planes at that elevation, and they also have no business being over this airspace, because you're not taking off from the Ontario International Airport or the San Bernardino Airport or the Upland Airport or the LAX. They are targeting, and they are targeting in the specific environment, and they're targeting identified by timing, as I'm identifying this sex offender, Alan D. Wapner. And the prosecution and the disbanding of the Ontario Police Department is serving to prosecute Alan D. Wapner. Okay, it is currently 5:08 p.m. That's the video that you just listened to, and that's a legal analysis, because that's what the demons like to engage in. And so I'm going to go ahead and rattle that out, because Alan D. Wapner is going to find himself in a federal court being prosecuted for gang stalking in the unprecedented manner of abusing a position as a president over an airport that's engaging in what is domestic terrorism and psychological torture of an American citizen. And he is foolish to engage in it while I'm documenting it. I'm documenting it on video. That you cannot get any more foolish than that. But this is not the first aged baboon that's engaging in what is targeting me and will live to regret it. It is currently 5:08 p.m. This is at Woodside. Daryl J. Carter and AVANATH Capital Management is going to be prosecuted. Its employees are going to prison. So remember, LYNDA Reyes is gang stalking under the 8:49 a.m. fake sun with the Ontario Police Department that begins flying in a circle as I document that terrorist. And the Ontario International Airport is gang stalking with the people of the state along the same sidewalk under the 5 p.m. fake sun where the Ontario International Airport, the city of Ontario, is gang stalking me as I document them by name. She's going to prison, so is every other employee, and I'm going to prosecute AVANATH for engaging in psychological torture, for keeping my vagina under surveillance in concert with the government, and doing so more so as I document it. That's going to be relevant to damages. It's going to be relevant to whether or not that company is even going to exist after I drain the pockets. It's designed to destroy that company. It's designed to ruin the reputation. No sex offender should exist after being exposed for being a sex offender and a terrorist. Nope, you shouldn't exist anymore as a company. That's not what companies are formed for in this country. It is currently 5:09 p.m. This is P.O.C. Everybody in units 33 to 64, like I stated, they're going to prison and they're going to mental asylums. This is P.O.C. Jason Isaac Fields, I want to be clear, this is a demon that is celebrating the ongoing monitoring that I'm subject to. I am not documenting for purposes of submitting any application. I will not be working with any demons that are sitting around monitoring. That includes the agency that Jason Isaac Fields is disgracing while he is monitoring my vagina, while he's engaging in psychological torture, the use of witchcraft, trying to use sex magic because apparently he can't get with women that are younger than 60 years old, that are the mothers of females that he engages in befriending for fake so that he can target them. Apparently he has problems with getting women. Perhaps this is why he has sex with men. He has a plethora of issues, life issues, mental issues, but this person is monitoring me, and he's monitoring while the people of the state and the city of Ontario is monitoring me, and it is nothing that is under any circumstances relevant, nor is any targeted individual that's documenting the government interested in any job, nor are you applying for any job, nor would you or should you accept any job from demons that are monitoring you. That's not a friendly workplace, and I don't cooperate with Satan and his minions. I expose them, and I prosecute them. That's what Jason Isaac Fields represents, and the entity is monitoring in concert with Jason Isaac Fields right now. So I want to make sure that that's clear. It is currently 5:11 p.m. P.O.C. Alrighty, it is 5:33 p.m. This is to note the malice behind everything that you hear Tracy Banks stating when she is speaking as the entity that is psychopathic and is specifically monitoring me, while then Tracy Banks uses my staying in the house, coming in the house. I'm a grown adult woman, but nonetheless, coming in the house because this is the guise under which she wants me to stop documenting the demons who are stalking, monitoring me in furtherance of murder and kidnapping. And she does this under the guise that they don't know that I'm here. They are gang stalking. Alan D. Wapner knows exactly what I am stating about him as I state it. The demons know the moment when I pull my panties down. The demons are obviously stalking me specifically while the fake sun remains over the apartment building. This is a psychopath, like I state, in real time when the demon begins manifesting, Tracy Banks, and she engages in harassment, documented harassment upon being documented. So this is, again, the demons that are gang stalking as an apartment complex, and they know exactly who I am and that I'm inside of this apartment. The environment shows that. The city itself is demonstrating that, proving that, and it's also getting back to the psychopath that is stating it as she's stating it. But you also are aware that Tracy Banks is a psychopath because all she does is pace around, and this demon, this life-size cockroach that is, again, a writhing, slimy maggot. I can't get any more descriptive with regard to how disgusting a demon is, and demons are spirits that use the body. So this is a demon-possessed person whose name I happen to know, and all this demon is doing is pacing around inside of this apartment day and night. Everything that she does in this apartment is about me. Even with regard to when she's going to the bathroom, it's about me. If I happen to do something, everything is scheduled, everything is based on me as I do it, as I say it, as I think it, everything. And that's entirely sick. And that is the reality of the demon-possessed. You will see the fake sun over the apartment building as the demon in unit number 55 is walking downstairs. She is crossing paths. She is obsessively stalking me in doing so. And you'll recall the November 6, 2024 documentation of the fake sun being over my head on the opposite building. In November, the entity was keeping the fake sun over the roof of units number 42 and 41. And now in May of 2025, the entity is keeping the fake sun specifically over Tracy Banks's over this side of the building. It's along the same sidewalk, but it's directly over my building. The opposite building is always covered in shade. You see the entity is always covering everything with light on the building where I'm at. And the entity is keeping the fake sun specifically over the building that I'm inside of. And on November 6, 2024 at 12:15, the demon in Unit 55 is walking along the same sidewalk. She's stalking me in doing so while she is walking along the same sidewalk. And that's just a way that I have documentation to put every single last person in the facility where they belong and the entire community to prosecute it. And while the government gang stalks with planes and helicopters under the fake sun, it is the evidence that the government is providing against its own co-conspirator as you break down and understand the system of gang stalking as it's operated. That's including the asininity of train activity, the asininity of the plane activity, the very obvious targeting by helicopter by the heavily documented police departments in the state, and then doing it in Ontario at Woodside Senior Apartments. It is Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. It's 5:36. I wanted to add on that legal analysis. And the entity is gang stalking with a white commercial plane, and there's another plane. So the demons are pacing in planes. In this video that I captured at approximately 5 p.m. None of them are at any level. You're not going to hear those planes. In other words, it's supernatural that plane activity is sounding inside of Tracy Banks' apartment. And again, ongoing relevant context. Wow, what is it that you mean? Well, if you can't hear it, then how are you hearing it? If the sun is an ongoing gaseous ball of fire that's in constant movement, how am I capturing it over the building for 5 hours today? Because it's supernatural. This is demonic. It's a pattern of conduct that is satanic. It is supernatural. This is why you engage in gang stalking, which is demonic, because when the ordinary target individual that does not have evidence establishing and supporting that strangers are indeed stalking them, which they have a gut instinct about, but perhaps they don't have evidence to prove it. And then there are those who are demons who are seeking to replicate what actual target individuals are experiencing. And that's the demon possessed that do that as well. But there are target individuals like myself who are being targeted for very specific purposes regarding your identity, regarding whatever giftedness in the demon possessed. Satan himself, who is a spirit, knows who you are, has an idea about your giftedness, about your placement in Christ and the kingdom of God, what it is that God has for you, etc. And targeting is relevant to what is the pattern of conduct, which is demonic. And so the entity seeks to falsely depict your character when you make allegations such as a stranger is stalking you, somebody that you don't know, somebody that you've never seen before. So again, logic. How are you claiming that they're stalking you if you don't know them and they're not following you from place to place to place? It's gang stalking. You have the same demonic spirit through millions of bodies that are stalking you together, and that's proven because the setting remains the same. And that setting is supernatural because the sun does not stay over one building for 11 hours. But in the specific environment, and it's captured in tangible evidence, that's how you get to the airport is stalking, the police department is stalking, the fire department is stalking, the city is stalking. When they're going to the 7-Eleven across the street, they're stalking. When they're in the parking lots driving, when they're in the apartment buildings, when they're walking downstairs and they're under a fake sun that remains over you, they're stalking. And that is giving tangible evidence to support what is supernatural. That population, strangers are stalking because that's supernatural. That's demonic. So in case people don't even understand the significance of what they're stating, when you say gang stalking is demonic activity. Because how can you have a whole bunch of people that don't have a relationship, physical, I don't know you, they don't know me, but they are in fact stalking. And that specific environment is showing you what their spiritual condition is. They're demons, and they know exactly who they are targeting through, and it's evident through the ignorant onlookers' observations of the specific environment. The fake sun remains over me. As I move, that sun moves. If I don't move, that fake sun doesn't move. When they move, that fake sun doesn't move. It remains over me. They drive away, they walk away, they go their separate ways, but that fake sun remains over me. It doesn't move unless I move. Okay, that's supernatural. That's how you are understanding the significance of Alan D. Wapner's very specific threat. And I don't take very kindly to threats. And Alan D. Wapner has been engaged in what is threatening my life and gang stalking me for years through the gang stalkers of the Ontario International Airport. That is a whole venue that is also documented under the fake sun as you're reviewing my documentation that I'm publishing, as I would take the Omnitrans, which is a gang stalker. I believe Omnitrans is attributed to San Bernardino County, so it may very well be like a state facilitating venue that's in motion. That's how I'm categorizing with regard to monitoring that's happening everywhere, in public, in quote-unquote private. A private property is not actually so. It's a facilitating venue where monitoring is underway. There's no privacy. So this is how you're getting through all of these superficial veneers that the demon-possessed are hiding under, but it's not persuasive. The fake sun is, again, and the entity did so because they're all mad because they were just documented stalking me when I'm using the toilet in this bathroom. And violent sex offenders who are more psychopathic than concerned about being removed from office, being exposed as sex offenders, being identified and prosecuted as terrorists, will engage in and resort to documented acts of retaliation upon federal group stalking and monitoring like they just did, including Alan D. Wapner. Because that's exactly who's being documented by name, specifically the individual that is gang stalking. As I document that demon by name, and airplanes began gang stalking me at the specific environment. It's very specific and personal. It's as personal as the fake sun remaining over me, contrasted with everyone else. It's not over everyone else. It remains over me at Woodside Senior Apartments. As they drive away, as Tracy Banks, that demon, drives away, the fake sun remains over me. Okay, it is the P.O.C. and the demons are gang stalked with a commercial airline plane. It's all white with a blue tail. That is not Delta Airlines. Delta Airlines has an elongated blue belly along the entirety of that bottom of that plane. So that is gang stalker, either United Airlines or the gang stalker that is JetBlue. The entity is gang stalking by flying in the scarce sky space, and that's just, again, a means of identifying the people of the state. That's not necessary. The target individual certainly doesn't have to do that. I do this because I am going to prosecute by venue, by airline, by pilot, okay, by a public official, by position. I'm taking you're losing your reputation, you're losing your position, you're losing your freedom, you're losing your if you have a clean record, you're losing that, and that's how specific I'm getting, because this is also setting precedent. The entity is gang stalking via the airport, and the airport is gang stalking via the airline associated with the airport. The entity is gang stalking by the pilots that crawl into those planes, who are demons, who are engaging in psychological torture. Psychological torture is relevant to what is the amplified plane activity, which is not a natural occurrence. The plane is not actually being heard inside of the apartment, but I am hearing plane activity, which is how demons are targeting you. And the purpose for doing that is because when you allege, what is that noise? I'm hearing that, and the entity is acting like they don't hear anything. They're surrounding you with demonic activity. They're surrounding you in an environment that is supernatural. And I'm always giving reference. If you're not understanding the words that are coming out of my mouth, look at the fake sun that's sitting over the same building from 6:33 until 5 p.m. Then you're understanding what I mean by supernatural. You see it is there, but that is supernatural. The sun is never in Texas or Florida or Massachusetts or Minnesota or in West Virginia when it's remaining over Woodside Senior Apartments in Ontario, California. Never. That's not the natural environment. That's supernatural. That's the thing that's exactly what they're doing with the audible activity. Doing it under the guise of planes is Alan D. Wapner specifically communicating a threat, while the airport is the guise under which demonic activity, the audible activity creation that's amplified in volume, impossible to hear. I'm going to prosecute for that psychological torture that I'm documenting. And I'm also giving the logical explanation behind what the demon-possessed are engaging in as a pattern of conduct, readily identifiable in that specific environment, which is a part of recognizing the pattern of conduct. The pattern of conduct is happening in the specific environment where there's engineered light. This is relevant to surveillance. It's 5:44 p.m. The entity is engaging that. I wanted to document the airlines that are engaging in the pattern of conduct. It does include Alaska Airlines, American Airlines, Avianca, China Airlines, Delta Airlines, Frontier Airlines, Hawaiian Airlines, JetBlue, Southwest, Starlux, which is an international line, I believe. They're engaged in crossing not only state lines, but crossing in and out of this country, and they're engaging in domestic terrorism in doing so, as I'm blowing the whistle on the entity that gang stalks via planes. And it's also a national security threat because mentally ill, demon-possessed terrorists are flying planes, as you also know, flying helicopters, and they're engaging what are harming people, not only gang stalking them and psychologically harming them, but literally killing them, These are mentally unstable people that should have no access to getting pilot licensure. And the ability to get a pilot's license should be changed. This is what I'm advocating because of the changing landscape, the fact that the states, the government is engaging what is monitoring American citizens and doing so via the airports. This is what LAX is engaging in at Alvarado Gardens in Los Angeles. This is what the Ontario International Airport is engaging in Ontario, California. This is what the city of Fontana is doing when I'm in Fontana at Sierra and Arrow at going toward the Fontana Lewis Library, and the demons of the Ontario International Airport are hovering in the sky space as I am looking at them gang stalking me, flying over my head at that intersection. I guess they're headed toward the Ontario International Airport. The entity is hovering in the sky space in Fontana, headed toward what would be the Ontario International Airport. This is not any sort of excuse to engage in stalking someone like I'm documenting from place to place to place. And how you know that they're stalking me in particular with commercial planes is the fake sun. That's the ability to identify them stalking me, including in different cities. The Ontario International Airport is a national security threat. You have the mentally ill, the demon-possessed that are engaging in what is this secret system of surveillance, and they are the same mentally unstable people who kill people, and then it's attributed to what are accidents, and they are not accidents. They are not accidents. They are acts of terrorism that are also not accurately reported on by the news, by the way, the people of the state. They're reported as accidents, and they're acts of terrorism that are happening right in front of our face. So I'm only going to bring alert about this so many times, but I have spoken about what is the real threat of the demon-possessed. They're gang stalking me using planes and helicopters. They're the same ones they engage in killing people on a regular basis. They're not accidents. Planes don't just come up missing and dissolve in the air. These are the demon-possessed that are engaging in acts of terrorism. They sacrifice people. They decide to kill them. These are demons. These are ticking time bombs. And when Satan tells them to engage in that act of violence, that's what they do. They are the demon-possessed who are gang stalking me with commercial airline planes. You know them as United Airlines, Volaris, Amazon, FedEx, and UPS gang stalking with their planes as well. Okay, these are the planes that are associated with the Ontario International Airport, and the entity is gang stalking over Woodside Senior Apartments at 5 p.m. on video in 2 planes. And the one plane that's flying over the apartment as I walk out, which is called stalking in the path, by the way, under the fake sun, that is hovering adjacent to this two-level apartment building. At 5 o'clock in the evening, it's over the apartment over my head at 10:54, where the Ontario Police is gang stalking me, flying over my head, flying in circles by helicopter on May 16, 2025. 10:54 until 5 p.m. is a supernatural occurrence. If you are not understanding what I mean by you cannot hear the planes that are in the air, that are nonetheless not going to be, they are clearly targeting because they're over the sky space over Woodside, but moreover, you cannot even hear them at that elevation inside of the apartment. This is how the demons are targeting me, with audible activity, amplified in volume, okay? And Alan D. WAPNER is specifically communicating a threat to me while I document him by name, and then commercial planes are used to target me inside of this apartment. Okay, it is in doing so in concert with a population that is threatening my life and safety and sexually violating me on a ceaseless basis. And those same demons, Alan D. WAPNER, like I stated, are very much engaging what is keeping my vagina under surveillance. Everything concerning my vagina is information that Alan D. WAPNER and the demons of airlines associated with the Ontario International Airport are very much invested in, but there's no legitimate interest in doing so. These are sex offenders. And these are the demon-possessed, obsessively stalking as an entity. That's gang stalking. It's 5:49 p.m. I wanted to document these airlines where you have one plane associated with it's all of them. So I'm documenting all of them, but I wanted to speak to an all-white plane, a blue tail, that is more or less JetBlue and or United Airlines, crossing path, flying right over my head with amplified audible activity that cannot be heard in the same way that train activity cannot be heard. It's terrorism. And also the sun does not sit over one building all day long. That's terrorism. And it's concerted with the demon-possessed who are going to prison. In units 33 through 64, they're providing a wealth of evidence that's supporting what's inevitable. You're going to prison, so all they're doing is providing more and more evidence supporting why they are in fact going to prison. That's it. It's insurmountable. You're going to prison. But it is currently 5:50 p.m. This is P.O.C. All right, just to put very briefly for the record, so following the documentation published today pursuant to surveillance in a bathroom, which is referred to as the sexually violent and predatory pattern of conduct of bathroom monitoring, which the entire city of Ontario, the local government, and the people of the state in the city of Ontario are committing while they are engaging in surveillance, gang stalking, referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring, which is proven to be underway, and they're engaging in surveillance in the bathroom as well. Exceedingly violent, inexplicable, totally illegitimate government interest in what's between my legs and what's going on in the bathroom. Okay, so this is going out far beyond just surveillance. This is sexual violence that the city of Ontario, the government, and the people of the state are engaging in. And bathroom monitoring is published on video today, and the timestamp is at 2 p.m. So this is published online, and I'm publishing it probably about maybe 35, 40 minutes before I'm on the couch inside of the living room. And this is, again, when the demon-possessed are obsessively... this is what these demons are. They hover, they salivate, they obsess over me, while every little thing that I do is kept under surveillance, including everything in between my legs, which is why they do things such as monitor what I'm doing online on YouTube and interfere with what I'm watching with ads pertaining to topics such as pubic hairs. That's how obsessed and that's how sexually perverted these sex offenders are with monitoring. Pubic hairs is coming up with regard to the personalized crime of monitoring that's happening online, and the demons such as Alan D. Wapner's obsession with my pubic area, while the entity uses ads referring to pubic hair, while ads are appearing in ways in which the platform YouTube does not design ads to appear, such as when I'm watching a video in the feed and ads do not generate there, but they can when they're monitoring you and they want to monitor you immediately. An ad will pop up in those feeds, but that is not where ads are populated. The entity does so pursuant to what is then harassment, as I continuously kept documenting that. The entity is doing so pursuant to what is harassment, as I'm documenting bathroom monitoring. This is at around 4 p.m. where it's published on YouTube. And at around 4:30, approximately 4:30 p.m. actually, when I am on the couch preparing to fall asleep, these demons that are indeed hovering, that are obsessed, that do engage in this heavy panting, like this is what their behavior is illustrative of. They're salivating, this is what their behavior is illustrative of, obsessing over every little thing pertaining to me. Okay, and as I'm on the couch at 4:30, I'm on the couch and sensational activity is created, not the amplified booming sound, which does have an impact. It's sensational activity as though not as though, because it's what's happening, but it's supernatural, that I'm on the couch and I'm not moving and there is no earthquake. Okay, the entity engages in what is the demonic occurrence with regard to what AVANATH is going to be prosecuted for. It's psychological torture and it's criminal interference with quiet enjoyment, while sensational activity is created and the couch that I'm on begins shaking while I'm on it. Very, very demonic. And all the demons you see me taking pictures of, you hear me reading their license plates, they're all sharing in that documented act of terrorism, which is exactly why I walked out. And that's what you see, which is obsessively stalking me in the path, not coincidentally walking downstairs and going to her vehicle, the sex offender of Unit 55, who is engaged in what is obsessively monitoring on a ceaseless basis in Unit 55, license 5WB715. You'll see her at 4:31 p.m. stalking in the path under the 4:31 p.m. fake sun. And like I stated, on November 6, 2024, you'll see her under the 12:15 p.m. fake sun while it's over the adjacent building. This is what the demons are doing while they're aware that I'm documenting what is the earthquake the earthquake created while I'm lying on the couch inside of this living room that's filled with impossible light activity inside of this building that has a fake sun sitting over it for 11 hours, where the entity is gang stalking through the police, through the airports, the entity that knows very much about my presence here, and that psychopathic means of harassment that is also on the record is relevant to the entity being prosecuted. So this is relevant, which is what is happening at 4:30 after the sex offenders are documented for monitoring my genitalia in the bathroom inside of this apartment, which is a sex offense committed by, again, the incestuous sex offender inside of this apartment with all the rest of the sex offenders that are engaging in the elements of monitoring together as an entity. The entity is doing so while I am engaging in the pattern of conduct and stalking with sensational activity that's terrorism. It's criminal interference with quiet enjoyment. That's why AVANATH employees are going to prison, by the way. And then as I walk out and I document the entity gang stalking under that fake sun, including through the train and planes that are documented as I'm capturing that P.O.C. and the light sources remaining over me as I'm walking about in that parking lot. This is documentation of ongoing domestic terrorism as I'm experiencing it, and I'm documenting it because I'm going to prosecute for it. The entity engages in what is targeting an American citizen in ways in which are unprecedented, never before heard of, and are, again, something that the target individual is not documenting. They're reacting to it. They're freaked out by it. They are defamed by it as well. I'm documenting it because I'm going to prosecute the demons that are engaged in what is trying to make an American citizen's life like some sort of horror flick. And the reality is that their prosecution, their lives are going to turn into a real life horror flick while they are exposed. They're removed from office. They're put in federal prison. They're put in mental asylums. They're removed from the public sector where they pose a threat to themselves and the public, while documentation is going to serve to prosecute the terrorists who are gang stalking. So I want to make sure that I document that. That's 4:30 p.m. sensational activity created on the couch. And then as I walk outside, the entity maintaining amplified audible activity, terrorism, under the fake sun that's remaining over me as I walk about and document license plates, terrorism, while the entity is monitoring together as a city and as an apartment complex, terrorism. And then Alan D. Wapner engaging in what is specifically targeting, as I name this demon, this fake Jew by name, and the entity resorts to gang stalking me by commercial airline planes over this multifamily zone while the fake sun is sitting over the same building at 5 p.m., hovering adjacent to it, by the way. It's currently 6:08 p.m. I wanted to give that brief recitation of that terrorism that is captured with regard to the prosecution of the entity. P.O.C. It is currently 9:48 p.m. The demon that is gang stalking at 4:31 p.m. under the fake sun that is over the same apartment building that is over at or the same city of Ontario is gang stalking at 10:54 a.m. where you can see the fake sun over the top of my head. That is inches away from the same front door of Tracy Banks, with a difference of, let's see, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 6 hours, with inches apart from being over the zenith over the top of my head at 2:54, where the city of Ontario's gang stalking video, and 4:31 p.m. where the demon in Unit 55 is stalking under the fake sun by crossing path, walking on the sidewalk in order to stalk me as I'm walking outside of the front door, which is a psychopath that is gang stalking by residents. License 5WB715. That demon that's gang stalking in the picture under that fake sun as I'm standing outside of Unit 51 at 4:31 p.m. is stalking at approximately 9:40 p.m. with amplified audible activity. And she's doing so with the intent to harass and terrorize with her co-defendant, LYNDA Reyes, who is going to federal prison, and her co-defendant, Ken Tracy Banks, is inside of the apartment gang stalking by residents, and all the rest of the co-defendants who are gang stalking with the city of Ontario. It is 9:49 p.m. That's criminal interference with quiet enjoyment, where the elderly people over 55 living under the fake sun amongst engineered light, gang stalking on a 24-hour basis, are all going to prison in units 33 through 64. And doing so with the demon that is in Unit 55, engaging in a documented act of terrorism, and the entity that's doing so while they're engaging in surveillance. And this is stalking and monitoring and psychological torture upon surveillance of the evidence. So these aren't just terrorists that are engaging in federal group stalking and monitoring. These are terrorists that are engaging in federal group stalking and monitoring with full knowledge and detail pertaining to every light that's played about them that I document, every image that I take of them, every screenshot, getting their elderly faces, every wrinkle, so that you could see them up close. All of the audible activity that I detail, all the impossible light activity that I detail, and they are engaging in it with knowledge of the evidence about them being published. It is 9:50 p.m. Daryl J. Carter of the AVANATH Capital Management is going to be prosecuted for psychological torture. AVANATH is a co-defendant of the people of the state gang stalking at Woodside, gang stalking with the city of Ontario, and AVANATH is going to be prosecuted for that. They are profiting from domestic terrorism, and they are gang stalking with their employees, who are gang stalking with the residents, who are gang stalking with the people of the state and the city of Ontario, that's monitoring at the facilitating venue. It is 9:50 p.m. Amplified audible activity is centered around my location on the couch. And that's where the amplified audible activity of this elderly demon that is living in Unit 55 with license 5WB715. This demon is stalking in the path, and it's impossible audible activity. It's as impossible as the sound of the planes flying in the sky space at an elevation where you're never going to hear them. But as they are shown, that is evidence of the Ontario International Airport, the City of Ontario targeting based on the address of the Ontario International Airport and Terminals 2 and Terminal 4, and the amplified audible activity that's happening in the engineered light. The Ontario International Airport is gang stalking, and the people of the state are gang stalking by residents. Amplified audible activity is the product of the combination of engineered light presence and supernatural audible activity, which is maintained centered on where I'm at. It is evidence of targeting by demons. Again, this demon's license plate is 5WB715. She is gang stalking with impunity. She in particular is going to a mental asylum. And it is, again, 9:52 p.m. She's engaging in it with all 144 units who are stalking together. They're monitoring together, and the demons in units 33 through 64 are subject to federal prison, inevitable imprisonment for gang stalking by residents inside of those particular units. It is, again, 9:52 p.m. This is P.O.C. Oh, I want to document the entity engaging in amplified audible activity, and then the audible activity gets louder and louder as I don't immediately respond, which again, demons that are obsessed with monitoring my vagina, seeking attention, and attention is coming from a federal prosecutor who is documenting them by name, address, image, license plate, etc. And then they engage in what are documented acts of retaliation once they get that attention, and then they engage in what is the psychopathic pattern, the audible activity getting louder and louder. These are the demons that are going to be put out of their misery with a federal prosecution and a criminal record so that everyone else knows that they're sex offenders as well. It is, again, 9:53 p.m. This is P.O.C. at Woodside Senior Apartments.